Chapter 22-26. At that moment, the cultivators inside and outside the ninth heavens finally realized that immortal Tai Hua had appeared because of zither immortal Meng Yao. Someone lamented, "It's a worthy death for fairy Meng Yao to be so concerned about him." Another person shook his head. "It's not honorable for fairy Meng Yao to target an earth immortal like that. I think zither immortal is just a fake. Don't spout nonsense. Be careful not to die." The elder of the cultivators sect hurriedly hollered, "In the heavenly realm, there are countless paragons and monster incarnates who are willing to be controlled by zither immortal. Who do you think you are to spout nonsense?" In the ninth heavens, immortal Tai Hua had an arrogant expression as he raised his hand slightly and released the white beam of light in his hand. He said indifferently, "You can die in peace now." The sword of white rainbow emitted an extremely sharp aura as it tore through the air and pierced through the mystic spirit Big Dipper diagram instantly. Even the light of billions of stars could not compare to the brilliance of the white rainbow that tore through the heavens. That was the power of a peerless divine power. Even the bloodline phenomenons of Han Tai and the other earth immortals trembled slightly against that power. In the blink of an eye, countless stars were sliced into two by the sword chi emitted by the white rainbow. The light dimmed and dissipated quickly. The white rainbow pierced through everything in its path. It was as though no immortal art or dermic art in this world could stop that white rainbow and its aura. The mystic spirit Big Dipper diagram had not been cultivated to perfection and could not withstand the true body of this peerless divine power at all. The sword of white rainbow descended from the skies and pierced toward Su Zimo's head. Without the support of the mystic spirit Big Dipper diagram, the bloodline phenomenons of Han Tai and the other earth immortals surged over like raging waves that wanted to engulf Su Zimo. At that moment, Su Zimo did not even have the chance to dodge in such a situation. Princess Chi Hong could not bear to watch. It was as though she could see Su Zimo dying tragically on the spot. In the square, many cultivators watched intently and held their breaths. Even Yun Ting's body leaned forward slightly, looking a little nervous. But all of a sudden, Su Zimo raised his head and roared, his voice shaking the nine heavens. Behind him, 6 ivory tusks as white as jade suddenly grew out. They were sharp and filled with a frightening aura. Su Zimo's aura was rapidly rising. It was as if a giant elephant had materialized and merged with Su Zimo's figure. It had 6 tusks, raised its trunk, and roared towards the sky. Innate divine ability, 6 fangs godly power. Although Su Zimo was only a Tier 8 earthly immortal, his primordial spirit had reached the level of a Tier 1 heavenly immortal. After releasing this innate divine power, his physical body, blood chi and essence spirit's power increased by more than 6 times. Then, under the gaze of countless people, 2 identical heads grew on both sides of Su Zimo's body and 4 more arms. Peerless divine ability, 3 heads 6 arms. Both inside and outside the 9 heavens, the crowd was in an uproar. This, true immortal Xieling's face was filled with shock as well. A Tier 8 earthly immortal had released a peerless divine power. Furthermore, this peerless divine power was extremely powerful. Many heavenly immortals might not be able to comprehend its mysteries even after reaching the peak of their cultivation. The few elders of Heaven and Earth Academy widened their mouths in shock. "I know peerless divine powers too." Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly. The 6-tusked divine elephant behind him waved its 3 heads and 6 arms and roared at Han Tai and the others who were charging at him, "Get lost." Even without the 6-tusked divine elephant and 3 heads 6 arms, just Qinglian's true body was enough to fight against the bloodline phenomenon of the executioner Earth Guards. Now that he had released an innate divine power and a peerless divine power, Su Zimo's strength was almost at its peak. Boom, 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 boom. Su Zimo punched 6 times consecutively with Han Tai and the sword of white rainbow above his head. He went all out and clashed head-on with the other 6 executioner Earth Guards. A series of deafening explosions shook the heavens and earth. The bloodline phenomenon of the executioner Earth Guards was destroyed by Su Zimo's fists. They could not withstand it at all. 6 figures were sent flying. Some of the Executioner Earth Guards were still in midair when their bodies exploded into a cloud of blood mist. They were completely crippled and lost their ability to fight. Some of the Executioner Earth Guards had strong physiques. Although their bodies were not destroyed, they were severely injured. Their organs and bones were broken. These Executioner Earth Guards could not withstand the power of the six-tusked divine elephant and 3 heads 6 arms at all. They were already extremely lucky to be able to withstand Su Zimo's attack. It proved that their strength was at the peak. If it was any other Earth Immortal, they would have been reduced to dust and their bodies and souls would have been destroyed. At the same time, the sword of White Rainbow descended. Han Tai's palm blade came down as well. Su Zimo ignored the 2 attacks and channeled his spirit consciousness once more, releasing 2 great mystic powers. Before the 6 Path Executioners could land on the ground, golden lotuses suddenly sprouted from the ground beneath them. Bang, bang, bang. When the golden lotuses collided with the bodies of the Executioner Earth Guards, the immense power shattered their bodies and destroyed their essence spirits. The few Earth Immortals of the Flying Immortal sect at the side hurriedly released their mystic powers to destroy the golden lotuses on the ground, wanting to save the remaining Executioner Earth Guards. However, more lotuses descended from the skies. Since Su Zimo had made his move, there was no way he would give these people of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom any chance of survival. A great mystic power of the Buddhist sects, heavenly flowers rain and golden lotuses bloom from the earth. There was no way they could escape from the pincer attack of the 2 great mystic powers. The 6 Executioner Earth Guards with bloodline phenomenons were all killed and their essence spirits were destroyed. It was a shocking scene. Su Zimo's counterattack was so ferocious that countless cultivators shuddered and even felt a hint of fear. Even the other reincarnated immortal, Feng Yin, who had been resting with his eyes closed, opened his eyes and looked over with a hint of caution in his eyes. What happened? Under the siege of 12 peak Earth Immortals, peerless mystic powers and 7 bloodline phenomenons, Su Zimo managed to kill 6 of them. Gasp. He's too powerful. The crowd in the square was in an uproar. Xie Qingqing stood up instinctively and looked at the battlefield in disbelief. Countless cultivators rose to their feet in excitement. The development of this battle had exceeded everyone's expectations. The sword of White Rainbow descended and pierced through Su Zimo's head, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Following that, Han the Iron's palm also split Su Zimo's face in half. Before the blood could flow out, it had already frozen into ice. Suddenly, Su Zimo's laughter sounded eerily. 3 heads and 6 arms. Immortal Tai Hua's sword of White Rainbow pierced through his head. Meanwhile, Han the Iron chopped off his other head. However, his head, which had an essence spirit, was intact. Chapter 22-27. Just now, the battle between the 2 sides was too intense. Although it took a long time to describe, it only took a few breaths of time. Su Zimo's counterattack was too fierce. It was only when the 6 Executioner Earth Guards were killed that many cultivators who were watching the battle realized what had happened. 3 heads 6 arms, a peerless divine power. I can't believe it was released by a level 8 Earth deity. The 6 Executioner Earth Guards with bloodline anomalies were killed by a peerless divine power and 2 Buddhist divine powers. They didn't even have a chance to fight back. Flowers rained from the sky and golden lotuses bloomed from the ground. One needs to comprehend the Buddhist divine powers to the extreme to be able to successfully cultivate these 2 divine powers. As far as I know, some Buddhist disciples can't even release these 2 divine powers. There was a hubbub of voices and countless cultivators were excited as they discussed the scene just now. Good. The elders of Qiankuan Academy were so excited that they couldn't say anything else. They just kept praising Su Zimo. You're still pretending even at this point? Heaven Immortal by Hai sneered. This kid's primordial spirit has cultivated to the Heaven Immortal level and has such combat strength. As the elders of Qiankuan Academy, you don't know? Hee. Elder Zhong also sneered. Su Zimo entered Qiankuan Academy 1,000 years ago and immediately went into seclusion. He only appeared a few days ago. This is also the first time we've seen him. We really don't know what kind of techniques he has. Hearing this, the other cultivators were even more shocked. Xia Qingqing said, "This means that after Brother Su entered Qiankuan Academy, he actually didn't have time to cultivate the Academy's techniques and his combat strength has already reached such a level. Strong. Too strong." Xia Qingqing could not help but exclaim, "The Earth Leaderboard's prediction of Brother Su's ranking this time is really too lacking." Good kill. Yun Ting drank a bowl of strong wine and said loudly, "That was really satisfying." At the same time, many cultivators gradually came to their senses. Yun Ting came to the Flaming Sun Immortal Kingdom and personally issued a challenge to Su Zimo. It was probably not just for the Heavenly Slaughter and Earth Slaughter sword arts. More importantly, Su Zimo's strength was enough to warrant such treatment from Yun Ting. Tian Yuan from the Mountain and Sea Immortal Sect sighed and shook his head. "Back then, I could tell that this kid was extraordinary. Who would have thought that I still underestimated him?" Duke Yuan's face was ashen. In the blink of an eye, the Great Jin Celestial Empire lost 6 Executioner Earthguards. Listening to the exclamations and praises of Su Zimo, he felt even more resentment in his heart. "What are you so proud of?" Duke Yuan's suddenly said. He looked around and raised his voice. "A rank 8 Earth Deity. Even if his primordial spirit has reached rank 1 Heavenly Deity, he would still be able to unleash a peerless divine skill. The consumption of his energy would be unimaginable. This Su Zimo is just an arrow at the end of its flight, a dying flash." In the end, Duke Yuan's ferocious gaze landed on the Qiankuan Academy's elders. He gritted his teeth and said, "It's too early for you to be happy." But Elder Zhong spat and said, 18 peak earthly immortals from the Dajin Immortal Kingdom and the Flying Immortal Sect have joined forces. Now they have been defeated by me, an 8th-level earthly immortal from the Academy. How dare you bark here? Yunzhua, you have embarrassed the Great Jin Celestial Empire and the Executioner Earthguards. Elder He also laughed out loud. Duke Yuan's face turned red after being scolded. He said resentfully, "A cornered beast is still putting up a fight. I'll wait and see how long he can last." Although the Qiankuan Academy's elders were happy to scold him, there was still a look of worry in their eyes. In fact, Duke Yuan's was right. When one's primordial spirit reached rank 1 Heavenly Deity, they would of course be able to unleash a peerless divine skill. However, the primordial spirit was only at rank 1 Heavenly Deity. Unleashing a peerless divine skill at rank 2 Heavenly Deity was too taxing on one's primordial spirit. It was too much of a burden. Immortal Taihua and Su Zimo were both unleashing peerless divine skills. However, the situation was completely different. Before Immortal Taihua made his move, he had been recuperating for a long time and was in peak condition. Su Zimo, on the other hand, had used up a lot of energy during his journey to obtain the treasures of the 4th heaven and unleashed many powerful mystic techniques. Just now, he had unleashed many more divine skills and mystic techniques, including the peerless divine skill, 3 heads and 6 arms. Even though he was a rank 1 Heavenly Deity in the primordial spirit realm, his energy had long been depleted. Meanwhile, the Great Jin Celestial Empire only had Han the Iron left. The Flying Immortal Sect still had Immortal Taihua and 4 other peak Earth Immortals from the Flying Immortal Sect. Next, Su Zimo's situation would be even more difficult. He would most likely die. In the 9th heaven, Su Zimo's situation was better than what the elders of the Academy had expected. It was because his primordial spirit was too special. It was the product of the fusion of Qinglian's primordial spirit and the Dragon Phoenix's primordial spirit. It was extremely condensed and pure. Moreover, after unleashing the power of 6 fangs, the power of his primordial spirit skyrocketed. Although his primordial spirit was still at the 1st stage Heaven Immortal Realm, his power had already reached the 2nd stage Heaven Immortal Realm. Along the way, Su Zimo had snatched the treasures of the 4th heaven and unleashed many mystic techniques such as the Pentati Dao Fire and the Heavenly Slaying Sword Qi. Just now, he had unleashed many trump cards in the battle. The power of his primordial spirit and his primordial qi were extremely depleted. Even so, his primordial spirit still maintained its combat power and could at least unleash one more primordial spirit mystic technique. He's already at the end of his rope. Everyone, don't be afraid. Immortal Taihua said in a deep voice. If we join forces and attack him together, he will definitely die. Ha! Su Zimo suddenly laughed out loud and looked at Immortal Taihua, who was not far away. His face was full of mockery as he said, "You want to send me on my way? Cultivators of the Flying Immortal Sect, listen up." Su Zimo said loudly, "Go back and tell Meng Yao that if she wants to send me, Su Zimo, on my way, ask her to come personally. Acheron's journey is too lonely. I don't mind letting Zither Immortal accompany me." Gasp. The crowd was in an uproar. Arrogant. Arrogant. This was simply blasphemy against Zither Immortal Meng Yao. This time, Fairy Meng Yao had invited the reincarnated immortal to join forces with the Dajin Immortal Kingdom to kill Su Zimo. Everyone could understand that he had resentment in his heart. However, even if he had resentment towards Zither Immortal, who would dare to openly oppose her? Even some immortal kings on the Divine Clouds continent were a little wary of Zither Immortal Meng Yao. In the eyes of many cultivators, Zither Immortal was a high and mighty fairy who could not be blasphemed. Now, Su Zimo actually asked Zither Immortal to personally appear in front of everyone and accompany him on the path of Acheron. Ignorant Junior! Heaven Immortal Bai Hai was furious. This time, even the perfected immortal Xieling was secretly speechless. With his status, he did not dare to say such words to Zither Immortal Meng Yao. Ha! Only Yun Ting laughed unscrupulously and said, "Su Zimo, how dare you? I really like you more and more. I've long despised Zither Immortal. She's not worthy of being on the same level as my sister." Chapter 22-28. Su Zimo, you really don't know what's good for you. Immortal Tai Hua's expression was cold. Although he was a reincarnated perfected immortal, in his heart, Zither Immortal Meng Yao was still a fairy. Even in his previous life, when he saw Zither Immortal Meng Yao, he would be respectful. At least half of the cultivators in the Flying Immortal sect were in love with Fairy Meng Yao. However, not many people dared to show it. Because in their hearts, they didn't deserve it at all. They didn't expect that Su Zimo would publicly blaspheme Zither Immortal Meng Yao today. This had completely touched Immortal Tai Hua's bottom line. "Su Zimo, let me tell you," Immortal Tai Hua said slowly, "there are some people you can't touch. Even if you blaspheme with your words or look at them, it's still a sin." "Is that so?" Su Zimo grinned and said with a cold gaze, "I also have something that you can't touch. If you touch it, you'll die." As soon as he finished speaking, Su Zimo's eyes lit up and he frantically activated his essence spirit. His vast divine consciousness gathered and released an essence spirit secret technique. A palm-sized, ordinary-looking scale slowly floated out from between his eyebrows, exuding a terrifying aura. "Reverse scale." Immortal Tai Hua yelled. His glabella flickered and released a ball of dazzling light. He also released an essence spirit secret technique and charged towards the reverse scale. The other 4 Earth Immortals of the Flying Immortal sect had originally condensed their divine powers and were about to release them. However, Su Zimo released his essence spirit secret technique first. The 4 of them had no choice but to condense their divine consciousness and release their essence spirit secret techniques. A battle between essence spirits was too dangerous. If it wasn't necessary, no one would use their essence spirit secret techniques. For example, although the Dajin Immortal Kingdom and the Flying Immortal sect had suffered heavy losses and only had 6 people left, they still had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers. Therefore, they didn't think of using their essence spirit secret techniques at all. Since the reverse scale had appeared, they could only release their essence spirit secret techniques to resist it. Han the Iron squinted slightly. In order to kill Su Zimo without fail, he had collected all the information about Su Zimo and studied it carefully. This was especially true for the Immortal Sect general election 1,000 years ago. According to his understanding, that essence spirit secret skill was extremely frightening and should not be touched if one's essence spirit realm was insufficient. Han the Iron hesitated and did not activate his Essence Soul Secret technique. At this moment, Immortal Tawa's Essence Soul Mystic technique collided with the reverse scale silently. However, the space where the two Essence Spirit secret skills collided shook violently, and ripples that resembled water ripples spread in all directions. This was not an ordinary battle between Essence Spirits. These were two soul cores that had attained the heavenly immortal realm, and when they collided head-on, the might of the aftershock that erupted from them was obvious. Even the cultivators standing next to the steel felt a chill in their sea of consciousness. Many cultivators even retreated and distanced themselves from the battlefield with lingering fear. Feng Yi no longer had his eyes closed. Instead, he stared intently at the battlefield, observing every detail. He knew that no matter who the final victor was, that person would be his greatest opponent. The moment Immortal Tai Hua's Essence Soul Mystic technique collided with the reverse scale, he suddenly felt a strong sense of crisis. It was as if death was about to descend in the next moment. All of a sudden, a strange power appeared in his sea of consciousness out of thin air and shrouded his weak essence spirit. After releasing the supreme mystical power and the Essence Soul Mystic technique, his essence spirit had already become extremely weak and could not resist the invasion of this strange power at all. Oh no! Immortal Tai Hua's expression changed drastically. Without thinking too much, he activated his essence spirit again, and a powerful energy wave burst out of his body. Majestic and vast vitality gushed out of Immortal Tai Hua's body. It was the supreme mystical power, endless growth. At the critical moment of life and death, Immortal Tai Hua used the last power of his essence spirit to release the second supreme mystical power. In fact, this was his greatest trump card against Feng Yi. In his initial plan, the battle for the first place of the Earth role would be between him and Feng Yi. If the two of them fought to the end and exhausted their Qi, Essence Spirit, and Essence Qi, he would release the endless growth to recover a large amount of Qi, Essence Spirit, and Essence Qi. There would be no suspense in this battle. However, he had never expected that he would use his greatest trump card in advance. He had no other choice. Boom! In his spiritual consciousness, Immortal Tai Hua's essence spirit was glowing with vitality, and it burst out with a terrifying divine consciousness to disperse the strange power derived from the reverse scale and escape the calamity. Don't touch that scale. At this moment, Immortal Tai Hua seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly yelled to remind them. Unfortunately, it was already too late. The Essence Soul Mystic techniques of the four Earth Immortals of the Flying Immortal sect collided with the reverse scale one after another. In their opinion, most of the power of the reverse scale had been blocked by Immortal Tai Hua. Their Essence Soul Mystic techniques were enough to destroy the reverse scale and rush straight into Su Zimo's spiritual consciousness to kill his essence spirit. However, when their Essence Soul Mystic techniques collided with the reverse scale, their expressions instantly froze and their eyes glazed over. The vitality in their bodies was rapidly draining. The reverse scale could not withstand it and had already shattered. In the spiritual consciousness of the four Earth Immortals of the Flying Immortal sect, their essence spirits were all destroyed. The four of them were intact and fell to the ground weakly. They were already dead. One Essence Soul Mystic technique killed another four people. In just a moment, only Immortal Tai Hua and Han the Iron were left of the 18 peak Earth Immortals. The encirclement had been broken. After releasing the reverse scale, Su Zimo's body swayed slightly and his face turned pale. The 6 divine elephant tusks behind him quietly retreated. The light between his eyebrows became extremely dim. After using so many trump cards consecutively, even Qinglian's true body could not withstand it and felt a little dizzy. Not to mention the cultivators in the 5th heaven, even the people in the square could see that Su Zimo's essence spirit was already exhausted. The power of his essence spirit was exhausted and his essence Qi was exhausted. He could not use all his divine powers, mystic techniques, and immortal techniques. This also meant that Su Zimo would be at the mercy of others. His life and death would be in the hands of others. Sigh, what a pity. Someone sighed with pity. He managed to survive until now under the siege of the Dajin Immortal Nation and the Flying Immortal Sect, and even killed 16 peak Earth Immortals. He's already famous enough. That's right. With such combat strength, it's not an exaggeration to rank him first on the Earth roll. But since ancient times, there have been so many geniuses who died prematurely. Who would remember them? In the square, many cultivators looked at the figure who was fighting alone in the ninth heaven and sighed. That figure looked a little lonely, a little pitiful, and even a little tragic. Although Han the Iron did not release his Essence Soul Mystic technique, he could sense that Su Zimo was weak. Immediately, his body flashed and he sped towards Su Zimo. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived in front of Su Zimo. Such a rare and fleeting opportunity was something that he would absolutely not let go of. The error-free chapters of Eternal Holy King will continue to be updated in the forum. There are no advertisements in the forum. Please bookmark and recommend the forum. If you like Eternal Holy King, please bookmark Eternal Holy King. Chapter 22-29. Han the Iron knew very well. Even if the power of Su Zimo's essence spirit was exhausted and he could no longer release his mystical powers or mystic techniques, his physical body and melee combat power were extremely terrifying. Therefore, Han the Iron did not hold back this time and almost released all his trump cards. Ice Spike. Han the Iron's glabella opened and his massive divine consciousness continuously condensed, forming a sharp and cold spike that stabbed towards Su Zimo. Just now, he did not release his Essence Spirit Mystic technique to avoid the calamity. When Su Zimo's Essence Spirit was at its weakest, he released this Essence Spirit Mystic technique, which was fatal. Eyes of Ice. At the same time, Han the Iron released the powerful ocular technique that he had cultivated. The temperature between heaven and earth plummeted. 2 streaks of frost burst out of Han the Iron's eyes and almost instantly, they arrived in front of Su Zimo. Ice Seal. Han the Iron roared and released another great mystical power. Under the activation of his essence spirit and ice chi and blood, the power of this great mystical power was almost comparable to that of a supreme mystical power. In the end, Han the Iron's chi and blood surged and cold air surged between his hands, condensing into a huge ice blade that he slashed towards Su Zimo. Han the Iron was ready to engage in melee combat, but he released his Essence Spirit Mystic technique, ocular technique, and mystical powers to complement it. The Flying Immortal Sect and the Dajin Immortal Kingdom had already suffered heavy losses. He would not allow any more unforeseen events to happen. He would not give Su Zimo any chance or hope of escaping. On the other side, Immortal Tai Hua released eternal vitality and the power of his Essence Spirit recovered. When he saw this scene, he did not miss the opportunity. He activated his Essence Spirit and released the second Essence Spirit Mystic technique. An Essence Spirit sword pierced through the air and pierced towards the back of Su Zimo's head. At this moment, the world seemed to have come to a standstill. Inside and outside the 9 heavens, countless cultivators watched this scene with bated breath. There were indeed only 2 people left from the Dajin Immortal Kingdom and the Flying Immortal Sect, but their combat power was ranked in the top 10 of the Earth roll. The joint attack of the 2 was even more terrifying than the joint attack of 18 Earth Immortals just now. Under such circumstances, no one believed that Su Zimo could survive. This was a dead-end situation that would definitely kill him. "You're still far from being able to kill me," Su Zimo hollered, and a majestic aura suddenly burst out of his body. It was full of vitality, and it was even greater than Immortal Taiwa's aura just now. His entire body seemed to have recovered. Peerless divine ability, endless growth. Waves of cheers erupted from the square. The crowd, which had just quieted down, once again burst into an uproar. Endless vitality was Qinglian's natal mystique. Su Zimo had already comprehended it when he was in the lower realm. When Qinglian's true body released this peerless divine ability, the effect was even more shocking. In almost the blink of an eye, Su Zimo's primordial spirit had already recovered to its peak. Vitality surged, and Han the Iron's great divine ability, Ice Seal, instantly dissipated. Ice Seal was only a great divine ability. No matter how powerful it was, it couldn't freeze Qinglian's true body when she released endless growth. Su Zimo ignored Immortal Taihua's essence soul mystic technique and suddenly turned around to look at Han the Iron, who was rushing over. Crack crack crack. The power of the Eye of Ice was the first to arrive. Wherever the eye technique passed, it left a white frost mark in the void. Su Zimo didn't dodge. His right eye suddenly became dazzling and burst out with a dazzling brilliance like the sun. Candlelight eye. The candlelight stone had already fused into Su Zimo's right eye. This eye technique was full of yang energy. The moment the power of the Eye of Ice collided with it, it began to melt. It couldn't resist at all. Boom. The brilliance of the candlelight shot straight in and instantly reached Han the Iron's face. Han the Iron rushed over at his maximum speed. He didn't expect such a change at all. Coupled with the instant release of the eye technique, it was too late for him to dodge. He could only try his best to tilt his head. Although it avoided the vital point between his brows, the beam of light still entered his left eye and pierced through it, creating a hole. Not a single drop of blood flowed out. The moment blood appeared, it was burned by the brilliance of the candlelight. After colliding with the Eye of Ice, the power of the candlelight eye was greatly depleted as well. Therefore, it did not kill Han the Iron directly and merely blinded him. Of course, with the remnant power of the candlelight, Han the Iron would have to recuperate for a long time before he could recover. What a pity! A thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. The nether fluorescent stone in his left eye had once absorbed a large amount of dark power in the Emperor's tomb. Now that it was dormant, it could not be activated. Otherwise, Han the Iron would be killed on the spot by his nether fluorescent eye. Han the Iron was indeed the commander of the Executioner Earth Guards. Although he was severely injured and his facial features were contorted in pain, he did not make a sound. He widened his remaining eye with a ferocious glint. Coupled with his Essence Spirit secret skill, he raised the ice blade in his hand and slashed towards Su Zimo. Immortal Taihua was behind Su Zimo's back. In Han the Iron's opinion, even if Su Zimo's Essence Spirit recovered to its peak, he would not be able to release his reverse scale again and defend against the Essence Spirit's secret skill of him and Immortal Taihua. Rulai Dermic Seal. Su Zimo activated his Essence Spirit and chanted the sutra silently. Golden light flickered between his glabella and an incomparably sacred Sanskrit flew out, emitting a golden light that seemed to be able to suppress all evil and transcend all living beings. Su Zimo's second Essence Spirit secret skill was released. The Rulai Dermic Seal did not fight against Immortal Taihua's Essence Spirit sword. Instead, it collided with Han the Iron's ice blade. The two Essence Spirit secret skills collided in midair. Han the Iron's body trembled and the light between his glabella flickered. He suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a large mouthful of blood. His Essence Spirit realm was not high enough and he still could not resist the Rulai Dermic Seal. Although he did not die in this Essence Spirit battle, his Essence Spirit was injured. On the other side, Su Zimo touched his glabella with his left hand and activated a secret skill. He pulled out a long whip that was flickering with lightning arcs from his glabella and struck it towards the descending Essence Spirit sword. The third Essence Spirit secret skill. Many cultivators in the square were horrified. Most ordinary cultivators could cultivate an Essence Spirit secret technique, and those who could cultivate two were already rare paragons. No matter how much they cultivated, it was not necessary for them and they did not have the energy to do so. The power of the Essence Spirit was limited and no one could continuously release Essence Spirit secret skills. Now, Su Zimo actually released 3 Essence Spirit secret skills. Under the terrifying attacks of Immortal Taihua and Han the Iron, Su Zimo did not die and even launched a powerful counterattack. The means displayed in this battle were far beyond the knowledge of ordinary Earth immortals. The sword and whip collided, creating waves of divine consciousness. The Essence Spirit realm of the two of them was similar and there was no winner in this Essence Spirit battle. However, this time, there was a hint of retreat in Immortal Taihua's eyes. Chapter 2230. Immortal Taihua wasn't afraid. He just didn't want to continue fighting with Su Zimo in the 9th heaven. Su Zimo's strength was far beyond his imagination. At the very most, he was shocked, but not to the extent where he was afraid. Both sides had used up most of their trump cards in the battle. Now, Su Zimo had released the supreme mystical power, eternal vitality, and his essence energy had recovered to the peak. Even if he continued to fight with Su Zimo here, Immortal Tai Hua was not confident that he could kill him. Instead, he might as well avoid him for now. It wouldn't be too late for him to attack when he left the ninth heaven and could use Dharma treasures. He had a few powerful Dharma treasures in his storage bag that could significantly increase his combat power. At the very least, he had prepared some pills that he could consume. After all, there were many restrictions in the ninth heaven and his combat power could not be unleashed to the peak. "I'm not afraid of him," Immortal Tai Hua muttered in his heart again, as if he was trying to strengthen his belief. At that thought, Immortal Tai Hua gave up on Su Zimo and turned around to leave. On the other hand, as the commander of the Execution Earth Guards, Han Tai obeyed the orders of Duke Yuanzhua and would definitely not retreat. Even if he was blinded in one eye and his essence soul was injured, he would not be afraid. However, the power of the long saber in his hand was greatly reduced after being severely injured. Su Zimo reached out with his bare hands and crushed the long saber. At the same time, Su Zimo raised his other hand and unleashed the Great Chaos Essence Palm, slamming it down on Han Tai's head. Han Tai raised his other arm in an attempt to block it. However, the power of the Great Chaos Essence Palm was so ferocious that it directly broke Han Tai's arm. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere, and blood chi filled the air. The huge power did not stop at all and was still pressing down on Han Tai. Tai Hua Yu. At this moment, Han Tai saw Immortal Tai Hua turn around and leave with one eye. He couldn't help but fly into a rage. Immortal Tai Hua's action was equivalent to selling him to Su Zimo. At the critical juncture of life and death, Han Tai also had a strong desire to survive. He suddenly raised his head, leaned back, and fell. This time, he narrowly avoided his vital parts. Bang! The Great Chaos Essence Palm pressed down on Han Tai's arm and landed on his chest. Accompanied by a horrifying sound of bones cracking, a palm-sized hole in Han Tai's chest instantly. Unfortunately, Su Zimo's power of Essence Spirit was exhausted earlier on and the divine power of 6 fangs and 3 heads and 6 arms dissipated as well. If not for that, his strength would have increased by 6 times. Coupled with the 3 heads and 6 arms, he would have been able to kill Han the Iron the moment he got close to him. Of course, this slap almost took away half of Han the Iron's life. Thump. His was est. His to. Estet test. S's. Su Zimo's eyes were full of murderous intent. The people from the Dajin Immortal Kingdom and the Flying Immortal Sect could live, except for Immortal Tai Hua. He killed Yi Fei, so Su Zimo wanted him to pay with his life. If it were before, Su Zimo had many secret movement techniques, he would be confident enough to kill Han Tai first and then chase after Immortal Tai Hua. But now, he had already released his secret movement techniques and couldn't use them in a short period of time. Now, he had let Immortal Tai Hua leave first. If he went to chase after Han Tai and came back, Immortal Tai Hua would probably have already escaped. The 9 heavens was too big. Trying to find someone who was bent on hiding here was like finding a needle in a haystack. It was simply impossible. If he left the 9th heaven and tried to kill Immortal Tai Hua under the watchful eyes of many heaven immortals, he didn't know what would happen. I have to keep him here. At this thought, Su Zimo gave up on Han Tai, turned around, and chased after Immortal Tai Hua in the distance. The dozens of cultivators next to the Earth Roll's stone tablet were dumbfounded. The alliance between the Dajin Immortal Kingdom and the Flying Immortal Sect ended in such a way. Han Tai was seriously injured and Immortal Tai Hua escaped. Su Zimo strode forward with a murderous aura and fixed his eyes on the figure in the distance. Obviously, he didn't intend to let Immortal Tai Hua go. Han Tai clutched his chest and coughed up blood, looking miserable. Originally, he was already a dead man. If Su Zimo chased after him, he wouldn't be able to last more than 3 rounds. He didn't expect that Immortal Tai Hua's departure would save his life. Han Tai looked at Immortal Tai Hua's back and smiled mockingly. Then, he looked at the tall Earth Roll's stone tablet not far away and looked at the name he had left on the stone tablet. The mockery in his eyes intensified. In his current state, he no longer had the chance to compete for the Earth Roll. His essence soul was injured, his physical body was severely injured, and one of his eyes was blind. It was unknown if he could break through to the Heaven Immortal realm in the future. Han Tai looked lonely. He turned around and walked towards the teleportation array in the direction of the fourth heaven. If he wanted to save his life, he couldn't stay here. Regardless of whether Su Zimo could kill Immortal Tai Hua or not, he would definitely die when he returned. He could only save his life by going to the fourth heaven and finding a place to hide. Beside the Earth Roll's stone tablet, Feng Yin, who was just watching the battle, suddenly moved and chased after Su Zimo and Immortal Tai Hua. Up until now, even he was curious about the outcome of the battle. Yu Feng, Yun Lei, and the others also chased after them. Xie Yun protected Princess Qi Hong and didn't chase after them. He sighed and said, "Qi Hong, your academy has really produced a ruthless person this time. Don't worry." Although the restrictions on Princess Qi Hong's body were not lifted, she could still speak. She said hatefully, "Junior brother Su will never let Tai Hua off. He will definitely avenge senior brother Yi." "It's difficult." Xie Yun shook his head slightly and said, "Su Zimo's combat power might be better than Immortal Tai Hua's, but if Immortal Tai Hua keeps avoiding the battle and wants to escape, he won't stand a chance." Princess Qi Hong was silent. She knew in her heart that Xie Yun was right. After all, Su Zimo was alone. If Immortal Tai Hua wanted to escape, Su Zimo wouldn't be able to stop him. In the square, many cultivators were horrified when they saw this scene. At this point, this battle had already exceeded everyone's expectations. The Flying Immortal Sect and the Dajin Immortal Kingdom suffered heavy losses. Su Zimo killed 16 peak stage Earth Immortals and almost removed them from the Earth Roll. These two great forces could be said to have lost all face. What was more terrifying was that the battle didn't seem to be over. Su Zimo still didn't give up and followed closely behind Immortal Tai Hua. He wanted to kill him. "Look, what's going on over there?" At this moment, someone looked around and saw a scene that was happening not far away from the teleportation array in the fourth heaven. Chapter 2231. In the fourth heaven, the gigantic willow tree not far away from the teleportation formation was undergoing a shocking transformation. No one knew what was happening, but countless willow leaves were turning yellow at a speed visible to the naked eye. The drooping willow branches were also withering rapidly. The ancient and rough bark on the willow tree was peeling off bit by bit as well. However, the vitality within the willow tree was getting stronger. This disciple of the academy has profited from a disaster. This is a fortune. The perfected immortal Xie Ling lamented. His cultivation realm was the highest among everyone present, and his insight far surpassed others as well. He could tell that after the primordial spirit of this disciple of the academy had fused with the primordial spirit of the giant willow, his primordial spirit realm had probably broken through to the heavenly immortal realm. His body had also been reborn, and his future was limitless. The potential of this disciple of the academy could be seen at a glance. Although he had joined the Qianquan Academy, he would at most be a heaven immortal in the future. But now that he had obtained such a great opportunity, his potential was unimaginable. This time around, Su Zimo had obtained the most treasures in the ninth heaven. Next, the disciple of the Qianquan Academy had obtained the most benefits. What a good method! The perfected immortal Xie Ling could not help but sigh when he thought about how this disciple of the academy had something to do with Su Zimo. Initially, Xie Ling was somewhat displeased with Su Zimo for seizing the foundation treasure of the fourth heaven. But now that he had witnessed the battle just now, Xie Ling thought about it and felt that it was nothing much for him to take away the treasure. He could take it as giving him a favor. At the very least, it was not a bad thing for the Flaming Sun Immortal Kingdom to be on good terms with this lad. Not long after, the willow tree had already completed its transformation. The gigantic willow tree had disappeared and was replaced by a willow sapling that looked thin and weak. The tree trunk was only as thick as an arm and a few willow branches drooped down. They were slender and weak and seemed like they could be snapped by a gust of wind. The willow sapling began to sway continuously and became more intense. Aya! Not long after, the willow tree let out a slightly immature voice of a human. In a spurt of energy, it actually pulled itself out of the soil, exposing its roots to the outside. After this action, the willow tree seemed to have exhausted a lot of energy and stood in place to rest. After pausing for a moment, the willow tree's body gradually changed. Many roots gathered together and the trunk evolved. Under the gazes of many cultivators, the willow sapling disappeared and was replaced by an 8 or 9-year-old child. One could vaguely see Lu Ping's appearance between his brows. The child was wearing a small green robe, and his hair was naturally combed into a few small braids that swayed slightly like willow branches. After the child transformed into his own body, he looked down and was stunned on the spot. So short! The child looked at his fair and tender hands and was shocked again. So small! The child hurriedly conjured up a sparkling mirror. He glanced at the mirror and was scared silly. Then he smashed the mirror with his fist. Fuck! The child cursed. However, his voice was young and tender, so when he said this foul language, it sounded neither fish nor foul. Junior brother Su, you've made me suffer. The child was Lu Ping, who devoured the essence spirit of the gigantic willow. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He had indeed inherited the body of the gigantic willow and was reborn, fusing perfectly with this body. However, for some reason he returned to his childhood appearance by accident. Lu Ping hurriedly checked his weak body. Lu Ping was slightly stunned. His cultivation realm did not regress. His essence spirit realm had actually broken through to the heaven immortal realm. Furthermore, although this body was small, the vitality and power it contained were extremely terrifying. It had perfectly inherited the power of the gigantic willow. Lu Ping clenched his small fists in disbelief and muttered to himself, although my body has become smaller, it seems to be stronger than before? Oh no, junior brother Su is in danger. Lu Ping suddenly thought of Su Zimo and hurriedly ran towards the teleportation formation. The braids on his head were almost flying up. After arriving at the teleportation formation, Lu Ping did not hesitate and directly ascended to the 5th heaven. After arriving at the 5th heaven, Lu Ping identified the direction and was about to run in the direction of the Earth Roll Stone tablet. However, he suddenly frowned. Not far away, there was a figure clutching his chest as he staggered towards this place. This person's face was pale and his body was covered in blood. He was blind in one eye and his body emitted a faint smell of blood. He looked extremely pathetic. Han the Iron? Lu Ping's eyes widened and he almost did not recognize him. Compared to the cold and ruthless great commander of the Execution Earth Guards, Han the Iron in front of him was panicking like a stray dog. He was depressed and looked miserable. Lu Ping did not know how Han the Iron had ended up in such a state. However, when he recalled how Han the Iron had chased after him previously, he could not help but laugh coldly. He stepped forward and blocked Han the Iron's path. Han the Iron stopped in his tracks and rolled his one eye. He rolled his eyes at the child in front of him. This child looked somewhat familiar. However, his essence spirit was injured and his mind was in a mess. Coupled with the fact that he was severely injured by Su Zimo this time round, the blow was too great. Without thinking too much, his expression darkened as he said coldly, "Where did this kid come from? Scram! Don't block my way." Even though he had been severely injured by Su Zimo and his essence spirit was injured, an ordinary Earth Immortal was no match for him. A starving camel was still bigger than a horse. He was the great commander of the Execution Earth Guards and had countless means of killing. Lu Ping stared and gritted his teeth. "Open your dog eyes and look at who I am." Lu Ping's words were quite imposing, but they were said in a childish voice and did not have much effect. "Brat, you don't know what's good for you." Han the Iron did not take Lu Ping seriously at all. He reached out his hand and grabbed Lu Ping's head. Lu Ping's head was not even as big as his palm. Although he could not use his essence spirit to activate his divine powers, he could kill most Earth immortals with just his body. This action affected the injury on his chest. Han the Iron endured the excruciating pain and did not make a sound. His palm was enough to crush this kid's head. Lu Ping was shocked. He had seen Han the Iron's means and did not dare to face Han the Iron's physical strength head-on. Lu Ping was about to activate the Academy's divine powers to resist Han the Iron's palm when a strange memory appeared in his mind. For some reason, he shook his head lightly. The few braids on his head seemed to have a mind of their own. They suddenly transformed into a few slender willow branches and whipped toward Han the Iron's palm. Piak piak piak. There were a few crisp sounds. There were a few bloody marks on Han the Iron's arm. These willow branches wrapped around Han the Iron's arm and tightened. Lu Ping was shocked to find that these willow branches had dug into Han the Iron's flesh so deep that his bones could be seen. Thick red blood flowed out with a bone-chilling coldness. However, these willow branches were not afraid of the cold and were not stained by blood. They were still green. If Han the Iron continued to exert force, his arm might be broken by these willow branches. Chapter 2232. Han the Iron grunted and his expression changed drastically. When Lu Ping saw this, he was shocked. He did not expect that the inconspicuous braids on his head would be so powerful that they could even break through Han the Iron's physical defense. Lu Ping did not know what was going on either. He only recalled a memory and subconsciously controlled the willow branches. He had fused perfectly with the essence spirit of the gigantic willow. Not only did he inherit the gigantic willow's body, but he also inherited its many techniques and memories. He did not even have to cultivate and could release the techniques of the gigantic willow at will. However, he had just transformed into Qingren, so he was still a little unfamiliar with using many of his techniques. For example, he could scatter the willow branches. One of them would be enough to lock Han the Iron's arm, while the rest of the willow branches could be used to attack Han the Iron. Han the Iron was in an extremely miserable state. His other arm was badly mutilated and his bones were broken by Su Zimo's Great Chaos Essence Palm. Right now, his arm was bound by Lu Ping and could not move at all. It was almost broken. His essence spirit was injured and he could not use the mystique of regrowing a broken arm. He could only consume many elixirs and rely on his blood qi to recover slowly. He did not expect to bump into this kid who appeared out of nowhere and restrained him again, worsening his injuries. Even though his body was broken, Han the Iron's eyes did not show any signs of submission. He was still ferocious as he prepared to counterattack. He could accept that Su Zimo had beaten him to such a state. After all, he was not strong enough. However, he was the great commander of the Executioner Earth Guards. How could he be subdued by a mere child? The most important thing was that he was well aware of the top experts who had entered the 9 heavens. There was no such child. Han the Iron's left arm was crippled and his right arm was bound by the willow branches. The only parts he could move were his legs. After Lu Ping fused with the gigantic willow, the power of his essence spirit increased tremendously. His spirit consciousness reached the heaven immortal realm and his senses were extremely sharp. Lu Ping had already sensed Han the moment he made a move. Hey! Lu Ping was still extremely wary of Han the Iron in his heart. Both parties were so close that he could not release his other techniques in time. He could only throw a punch instinctively and shout. Han the Iron had just lifted his leg when Lu Ping's fist landed on his chest. This punch was too fast. With just one punch, Han the Iron's chest was pierced through and his heart exploded. A small, chubby fist protruded out of Han the Iron's back, covered in blood. Lu Ping and Han the Iron were stunned at the same time, their eyes filled with disbelief. They did not expect the punch to severely injure Han the Iron. With his heart exploding, Han the Iron's qi and blood drained rapidly. He looked dispirited. Coupled with the fact that his Yuan spirit was injured, he had lost almost all of his combat power. This body is too strong. Lu Ping's heart thumped wildly as he looked agitated. In fact, after inheriting Giant Willow's body, although his physical strength was strong, it was not at this level. However, Han the Iron's chest had been shattered by Su Zimo's great chaotic essence palm. His flesh and bones were almost rotting inside. Only then would Lu Ping's punch be able to penetrate through his chest. Blood kept flowing out of Han the Iron's mouth. His body could not hold on any longer. He stood in front of Lu Ping, his body swaying as he looked down at Lu Ping's face. His pupils constricted gradually. Han the Iron tried to open his mouth, as if he wanted to say something. However, blood kept flowing out and his words were choppy and unclear. "It's you." Han the Iron recognized Lu Ping's face. However, he did not expect that this disciple of the academy, who he had hunted down and should have died, would become like this. How could he suddenly have such powerful strength? "You recognized me. Very good." Lu Ping gradually calmed down and retracted his fist. Han the Iron could not hold on any longer. With a plop, he knelt in front of Lu Ping, his face pale. "Speak." Lu Ping's small hand grabbed Han the Iron's collar and said sternly, "What did you do to my junior brother Su? Is junior brother Su still alive?" Han the Iron could no longer speak. Blood kept flowing out of the hole in his chest and mouth. Lu Ping frowned secretly. After hesitating for a long time, he still did not dare to kill him. The one who killed Yi Fei was immortal Taihua. Han the Iron could not be blamed. Most importantly, he was just an ordinary disciple of the academy. He had too many concerns and did not have the courage to kill the commander of the Executioner Earth Guards. Of course, if Su Zimo was besieged to death by Han the Iron and the others, he would kill Han the Iron to avenge his junior brother Su. There was another point. If he did not kill Han the Iron, he could use his life to threaten the other Earth Immortals of the Dajin Celestial Kingdom. That might help junior brother Su. At that thought, Lu Ping grabbed Han the Iron's collar and dragged him towards the Earth Roll stone tablet. In the square, Duke Yuanzhua and Heaven Immortal Bai Hai's expressions were extremely ugly. The two forces had suffered great losses this time. They had mobilized so many people and even invited a reincarnated immortal. Not only did they fail to kill Su Zimo, but they were also defeated by him. After today, the Dajin Celestial Kingdom and the Flying Celestial Sect would become the laughing stock of the Divine Clouds continent. The two of them looked gloomy and glanced at the Qianquan Academy from time to time. They were angry but could not vent their anger. "Do the two of you have something to say?" Elder Zhong stroked his beard and looked at Duke Yuanzhua and Heaven Immortal Bai Hai from the corner of his eyes. He said slowly, "Just now, someone said that if the Earth Immortals of the Dajin Celestial Kingdom and the Flying Celestial Sect died in the 9 heavens, you wouldn't say anything. They can only blame themselves for not being skilled enough. You're not the only one who remembers. All the cultivators here heard it clearly." Elder He added from the side. Duke Yuanzhua was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Heaven Immortal Bai Hai gritted his teeth and said, "Su Zimo from the Qianquan Academy is too cruel. Immortal Taihua from the Flying Celestial Sect only killed one disciple of your academy. Su Zimo has already killed a total of 16 of our Earth Immortals." "Good job." Elder Zhong thought of Yi Fei's tragic death and still could not let it go. He said loudly, "Ha!" Yun Ting, who was next to him, also laughed. "What a joke. The two of you joined forces to kill someone but were killed instead. How dare you accuse the other party of being too cruel? Yuanzhua, Bai Hai, you've embarrassed the Dajin Celestial Kingdom and the Flying Celestial Sect." Heaven Immortal Bai Hai could not say a word after being scolded by Yun Ting. He could only grit his teeth and suppress the resentment in his heart. Many cultivators in the crowd were whispering and looking in the direction of the Dajin Celestial Kingdom and the Flying Celestial Sect with disdain. "Bai Hai, you'd better worry about that reincarnated immortal of your sect." Yun Ting took a sip of wine and said calmly, "Umph." Heaven Immortal Bai Hai sneered. "What? If immortal Taihua avoids the battle, do you think Su Zimo can stop him in the 9 heavens?" As soon as Heaven Immortal Bai Hai finished speaking, Su Zimo attacked again in the 9 heavens. Chapter 2233. In the 9th heaven. Immortal Tai Hua sped all the way while Su Zimo followed closely behind. The distance between the two of them could not be shortened at all. However, Su Zimo relied on the explosive power of his physical body to cover a huge distance between his steps. Immortal Tai Hua was unable to shake him off. If time permitted, Su Zimo could certainly continue chasing like this. With the physique and powerful vitality of Qinglian's true body, he could exhaust Immortal Tai Hua to death. However, this was the 9th heaven. Once 100 Earth Immortals left their names on the Earth ranking stone tablet, all the Earth Immortals would be forcibly transferred out. If he wanted to kill Immortal Tai Hua, he had to do it before the end of the elimination round. Su Zimo stared at Immortal Tai Hua's back with a cold expression. Suddenly, he activated his divine senses and a gray mist shrouded his hands, condensing into a gray long saber. Swoosh! The long saber pierced through the air and slashed in the direction of Immortal Tai Hua. Great mystical power, Time Saber. Su Zimo released eternal vitality, restoring his essence spirit and essence chi to the peak. However, he had just released many of his techniques and could not use them in a short period of time. He did not have many trump cards left. The only thing that could pose a threat to Immortal Tai Hua was the power of time. Immortal Tai Hua sensed the energy fluctuations behind him and chuckled with a mocking expression. It was just a great mystical power and could not threaten him at all. Seeing that the gray long saber was about to slash him, Immortal Tai Hua's body suddenly moved diagonally forward and dodged the time saber by a hair's breadth. However, the time saber chased after Immortal Tai Hua like a maggot. Who could dodge the power of time? Even if one cultivated to the Immortal King or Immortal Emperor realm and ruled the world, they still could not escape the passage of time and could not live forever. That was an untouchable level. Immortal Tai Hua dodged continuously, but the time saber was still following him like a shadow. Immortal Tai Hua sneered slightly and said, "It's just a great mystical power. It's nothing." Although he said that, he did not dare to be careless. He could indeed smell a dangerous aura from this gray saber. As Immortal Tai Hua sped forward, the essence energy on his fingertip drew a rune in front of him before throwing it at the saber's seal of time behind him. Bang! The blade of time smashed into the symbols, and with a loud rumble, it collapsed. Gray mist scattered in all directions, filling the air. A strand of Immortal Tai Hua's long hair accidentally came into contact with the gray mist, and his originally black hair instantly turned grayish-white. When Immortal Tai Hua saw this scene from the corner of his eye, he was shocked and his expression changed. The power of time? The power of time was the most mysterious, the most difficult to come into contact with, the most difficult to cultivate, and the most difficult to comprehend. Even before he reincarnated, he had not been able to control the power of time. On the square, the various powerhouses were also secretly shocked. They subconsciously looked in the direction of Qiankuan Academy. Since when did the Qiankuan Academy possess such a time-divine ability? Tian Yuan from the Mountain and Sea Immortal sect frowned. Many cultivators from the Pang clan of Godly Clouds also remembered something that had happened not long ago. Just before the 10,000-year meeting, they had just received news that their clan's genius, Pang Yu, had been killed in Qiankuan Academy and died on the spot. Pang Yu was a genius that the Pang clan had focused on nurturing. The fact that he could enter Qiankuan Academy and occupy a place in the inner sect also proved his potential. They did not expect him to die in Qiankuan Academy. This matter caused a huge commotion in the Pang clan. Pang Yu's death was strange. He had been hit by the power of time and died from the exhaustion of his lifespan. However, according to the information they received, the person who killed Pang Yu was a heaven immortal from Qiankuan Academy. The power of time that erupted was much stronger than Su Zimo's current display. Heaven Immortal Bai Hai heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Immortal Tai Hua was fine. Then he sneered, "You want to kill a reincarnated immortal of my Flying Immortal sect with just a great divine ability? What a joke!" As soon as he finished speaking, Su Zimo attacked again. The gray mist in Su Zimo's hands kept surging and changing. It condensed into a second gray saber. With a whoosh, it tore through the air and slashed at Immortal Tai Hua. What's going on? This kid is actually using the same divine ability consecutively? Exclamations came from the crowd. Even the many heaven immortals present were shocked. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Swoosh. Immediately after, another saber of time condensed and slashed at immortal Tai Hua again. Look, the third gray saber. The fourth. The fifth. Many cultivators were shocked and looked at the scene in the 9 heavens in disbelief. The great divine ability, Saber of Time, was actually transformed from barren. The power of the Saber of Time originated from the gray mist between Su Zimo's palms. As long as there was enough gray mist and essence soul, he could keep using the Saber of Time. Such a method seemed terrifying, but when one reached the heaven immortal realm, it would become extremely useless. That was because no matter how many sabers of time were released, they would not be able to defeat a peerless divine ability. However, in a battle between Earth immortals, this kind of continuous saber of time was a huge threat to any Earth immortal. Time was like a saber that aged people. Immortal Tai Hua did not dare to underestimate each saber. If he wanted to resist, he could only continuously release divine abilities and mystic techniques to fight against the saber of time. In this way, the battle between the two sides quietly changed. Both of them were peerless geniuses among the Earth immortals, but in this battle, there was no technique to speak of. It turned into a battle of essence soul and essence chi. Whoever's essence soul could not hold on first would die. Whoever's essence chi was exhausted first would die. The perfected immortal Xieling suddenly sighed with a complicated expression. He looked at the green-robed cultivator in the 9 heavens and murmured softly, "This kid is too terrifying." Xieling was not only referring to Su Zimo's trump cards. It was also because of Su Zimo's control and judgment of the situation. Just as everyone thought before, if immortal Tai Hua avoided the battle and wanted to escape, Su Zimo would not be able to make him stay, let alone kill him. But now, immortal Tai Hua had no choice but to fight. Not only that, this battle had also turned into a battle of attrition. There were no techniques, no close-range attacks, only the most violent and simple head-on battle that was constantly exhausting. If immortal Tai Hua could not hold on and exhausted his essence chi and the power of his essence soul, he would really have no chance to escape. This might be the only chance to make immortal Tai Hua stay. And this opportunity did not exist originally. It was created by Su Zimo, who forced immortal Tai Hua into a desperate situation. As a reincarnated perfected immortal who had just returned from cultivation, he encountered such a ruthless person who was leading him by the nose from the beginning to the end. Many heavenly immortal realm experts sighed with emotion when they saw this scene. When immortal Tai Hua sensed the gray sabers flying towards him from behind, his expression changed in shock. He did not dare to stop. He could only frantically activate his essence soul and release many mystic techniques to resist the power of the Saber of Time. Great Tearing Technique, Gauchian Slash, Armor Breaking Seal, Sun Saber. In an extremely short period of time, Su Zimo released 36 sabers of time. Immortal Tai Hua's long hair danced and his eyes were bright. He also pushed his essence soul to the limit and released 36 different mystic techniques. In an instant, the mystic techniques collided, shaking heaven and earth and changing the weather. Chapter 2234. Many cultivators felt their blood boiling as they watched the battle. One had to know that after an ordinary cultivator released a divine ability, if they wanted to release another divine ability, there would be a gap in between to allow their primordial spirit to recover and recover. Otherwise, the burden on the primordial spirit would be too great and the damage would be severe. The more condensed the primordial spirit was, the shorter the interval would be. For example, people like Yun Ting, Tai Hua, and Feng Yin could release multiple divine powers consecutively and their primordial spirits could withstand it. Now, the crowd had the opportunity to see such intensive attacks and the eruption of divine powers. They were all exhilarated. This is what a peerless expert is like. The killing power of an Earth immortal expert can reach such a level. Immortal Tai Hua has reincarnated and has the imprint of his previous life. It's understandable that his primordial spirit is more condensed. Su Zimo is from the lower realm, but he can still fight against immortal Tai Hua, and his primordial spirit hasn't collapsed. Exclamations, shouts, and all sorts of exclamations were intertwined and turned into a buzzing noise that echoed in the square. "Brother Su, you're really good," Xie Qingqing said. "The reason why reincarnated immortals are so powerful is that they have cultivated for a lifetime. Although they have only recovered some of their memories, their combat experience, combat skills, judgment, control, and knowledge of the situation are far superior to their peers. Now that Brother Su has forced immortal Tai Hua into such a state, all his experience and skills are useless. He can only continue to fight with Brother Su. Your Highness, who do you think will win this battle?" Su Xiaotian certainly hoped that Su Zimo would win, but he was still a little worried. After all, Su Zimo had fought many battles along the way and had consumed too much energy. Moreover, his opponent was a reincarnated immortal and could not be underestimated. "It's hard to say." Xie Qingqing pondered and said, "Both of their primordial spirits have reached the level of a first-stage heaven immortal. They should still have trump cards that they haven't used yet. If they use this trump card, I'm afraid the outcome will be decided." In the 9 heavens, the two sides fought in such a way. In a very short period of time, the battle quickly reached its climax. After 36 slashes, Su Zimo's eyes lit up and his aura became stronger and stronger. The more he fought, the braver he became. There were no signs of him stopping. Bush, bush, bush. In front of Su Zimo, gray fog swirled and changed. Several sabers of time condensed once more, ready to strike. "Su Zimo!" Immortal Tai Hua suddenly stopped in his tracks, turned around abruptly, and said loudly, "If you want to fight, let's fight outside the 9 heavens and on the earth roll. How about that?" Although Immortal Tai Hua's voice was loud, his tone was weaker than Lin Fan's. "I want your life now." Su Zimo looked at Immortal Tai Hua coldly and said calmly. Immortal Tai Hua stared at Su Zimo with a ferocious expression and said sternly, "Su Zimo, don't push your luck. If you really force me into a corner and fight to the death, you won't be able to survive either." Of course, Immortal Tai Hua still had some trump cards. However, if he were to use this trump card, he was not confident that he could kill Su Zimo. If he failed, he might die here. Therefore, Immortal Tai Hua did not dare to use this trump card. Fight to the death? Su Zimo was unmoved and looked fearless. In fact, he ignored Immortal Tai Hua and directly released the saber of time that condensed in front of him to slash at Immortal Tai Hua. After releasing 36 mystical powers and mystic techniques consecutively, Immortal Tai Hua's essence spirit could no longer take it and was aching faintly. If this continued, he would be exhausted to death. "Go to hell!" Immortal Tai Hua shouted and frantically activated his essence spirit. The essence chi in his hands quickly drew mysterious and complicated runes in midair that were full of murderous intent. The terrifying power of the mystical powers spread and surged toward Su Zimo. "Immortal slaying talisman!" Perfected Immortal Xie Ling exclaimed softly. This was a peerless mystical power of the Flying Immortal sect. Once released, it could cut off the opponent's vitality and was extremely terrifying. "The outcome is about to be decided." Xie Qingqing murmured softly without looking away. Countless cultivators also held their breaths and watched the scene in the 9 heavens. After releasing this peerless mystical powers, Immortal Tai Hua's essence spirit instantly became extremely weak and his face turned pale. The Immortal Slaying Talisman collided with the sabers of time in midair. The sabers of time could not withstand it at all and collapsed. "You finally attacked." Su Zimo looked at the incoming Immortal Slaying Talisman without any fear. Instead, there was a hint of mockery in his eyes, as though he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Bang! The Immortal Slaying Talisman was imprinted on Su Zimo's chest and a tremendous power surged into the body of Qinglian's true body instantly, destroying a large amount of vitality. Her flesh, bones and organs were severely injured and her vitality was draining rapidly. However, The vitality of the 10th grade Qinglian's true body was far beyond that of other living beings. It was vast and unimaginable. If this peerless mystical powers were to land on the bodies of dragons, they might even be killed. However, Su Zimo relied on the powerful self-recovery ability of the Qinglian's true body to survive. Although the vitality in his body was weak, it was recovering slowly. Probably only the 10th grade Qinglian's true body could withstand a peerless mystical powers head-on without dying. Of course, more importantly, immortal Tai Hua's essence soul realm was only at the first stage heaven immortal realm and could not unleash the full power of the immortal slaying talisman. If a level 9 heaven immortal released this peerless mystical powers, even the 10th grade Qinglian's true body would be shattered into pieces. Moreover, immortal Tai Hua had already exchanged 36 mystical powers with Su Zimo and his essence soul was weak. The power of this peerless mystical powers was reduced by another level. It collided with the saber of time and its power was reduced again. When it landed on Su Zimo's body, it was no longer much of a threat. Everything was under Su Zimo's control. He's not dead. Immortal Tai Hua's eyes narrowed. He saw that although Su Zimo's body was swaying slightly, his vitality was weak and he coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood. His vitality was not cut off. Moreover, his vitality was recovering rapidly. You won't have the chance to reincarnate. Su Zimo's expression was calm as he said indifferently. He activated his essence soul and activated his mystical powers. Across the void, he pointed at immortal Tai Hua and uttered 4 words. Fleeting youth. Immortal Tai Hua's pupils constricted violently as a strong sense of crisis enveloped him. It was as if he was going to die on the spot in the next moment. He wanted to escape and break free from this terrifying feeling, but he couldn't get rid of it no matter how hard he tried. He wanted to release the peerless mystical powers again, but his essence soul was in excruciating pain. He felt dizzy and almost fainted. At this moment, he finally understood something. All of Su Zimo's previous methods were to force him to release that peerless mystical powers. After he released the immortal slaying talisman, Su Zimo would use this killing move and he would no longer be able to resist it. Time was like a saber, fleeting youth. In front of everyone, immortal Tai Hua was in his twilight years. His hair was white and his face was haggard. His face was full of wrinkles that seemed to have been carved by a blade. All the vigor, glory, pride, and sharpness in his body vanished in an instant. Immortal Tai Hua's qi and blood were weak. His body was hunched over and his eyes were turbid. Filled with horror, he stretched out his skinny arm and pointed at Su Zimo, as if he wanted to say something. However, in the end, the reincarnated immortal still fell on his back. His essence soul was destroyed and his vitality was cut off. This time, his soul was destroyed and he no longer had the chance to reincarnate. He died in the 9 heavens. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 2235. After Su Zimo killed immortal Tai Hua, he still did not let his guard down. Instead, he slowly turned around and looked diagonally behind him. In the sandstorm, a figure stood there vaguely. He had been watching the battle for a long time and emitted a powerful aura. It was the other reincarnated immortal, Feng Yin. Su Zimo did not know much about Feng Yin or the character and methods of this reincarnated immortal. Su Zimo was worried that this person would take advantage of the situation and attack him. Hence, he did not dare to be careless. In fact, Feng Yin did have such a thought in an instant. He wanted to take the opportunity to kill Su Zimo. Su Zimo's methods had already caused him to feel a deep sense of wariness and even a hint of fear. If he were in immortal Tai Hua's place, he would not be able to escape death in the face of those methods. This person would definitely be his greatest opponent in the Earth role. It would be best if he could get rid of such a huge threat in advance. However, Feng Yin thought about it and felt that Su Zimo was already at the end of his rope and there was nothing to be afraid of. As a reincarnated immortal, he would be ridiculed by the world if he kicked him while he was down in front of everyone even if he won. The elimination round was about to end and the ranking battle would begin soon. In such a short period of time, Su Zimo would not be able to recover much essence energy and stamina. He had already used up all his trump cards. When the time came, he would still be able to defeat him openly in the ranking battle. There was no need for him to make a move here and become a laughingstock. Moreover, if he made a move now, he would definitely offend Qianquan Academy and the gains would not make up for the losses. In the ranking battle, he could logically defeat or kill Su Zimo and Qianquan Academy would not be able to say anything. Feng Yin stood there for a long time and did not leave. Most importantly, he was shocked by the scene of Su Zimo killing Immortal Tai Hua just now. 36 consecutive mystical abilities. He resisted a peerless mystical ability with his physical body. Then he released a peerless mystical ability that could deplete one's lifespan in an instant. The depletion of one's lifespan was irreversible. It was too horrifying for an Earth Immortal to use such a technique. This battle had indeed startled Feng Yin. Feng Yin took a deep breath and gradually calmed himself down. Finally, he smiled indifferently and turned to leave. No matter what, he was the biggest winner in this Earth Roll competition. Su Zimo had exhausted all his means and consumed too much energy. His body was injured and he was no longer able to fight with him. The rest were nothing to fear. The square outside the 9 heavens was already in an uproar. In every Earth Roll contest, the ranking battle was the main event. After going through the baptism of the elimination round, the final 100 geniuses would face off against each other and kill each other. This was the most interesting part. However, no one had expected that such an intense battle would erupt in the elimination round. I thought that with the alliance of the Dajin Immortal Kingdom and the Flying Immortal Sect, as well as the Reincarnated Immortal, Qing Chenzi, and Han the Iron, there should be no suspense. Who would have thought? It's too tragic. The Dajin Immortal Kingdom and the Flying Immortal Sect had 22 Earth Immortals participating in the elimination round. In this battle, 18 of them were killed. Even the Reincarnated Immortal is dead. The Dajin Immortal Kingdom and the Flying Immortal Sect have suffered a great loss this time. They have really taken a big tumble. Hearing the discussions around them, the faces of Duke Yuanzhua and Bai Hai were extremely ugly. They clenched their fists tightly and trembled slightly as they tried to suppress the anger in their hearts. Sigh. Before this, Duke Yuanzhua was still clamoring to teach the Qianquan Academy a lesson. He wanted to remove the Qianquan Academy from the Earth Roll this time. Now, it seems, stop talking. The Dajin Immortal Kingdom and the Flying Immortal Sect have really embarrassed themselves this time. The Qianquan Academy only lost one person. They are almost all dead. Compared to Duke Yuanzhua and Bai Hai, the elders of the Qianquan Academy were naturally in high spirits. However, there was still a trace of grief and indignation in their hearts. Yi Fei's death still did not make them feel at ease. In the seats of the Pang clan, a large immortal Dao clan, a few members of the Pang clan looked at the tragic death of Immortal Tai Hua in the 9th heaven and frowned deeply with grave expressions. Tai Hua's death is exactly the same as Pang Yu's. Could it be that there's something else behind Pang Yu's death? Could it be that Yang Ruoxu of the Qianquan Academy imparted this supreme superpower to this kid? A few members of the Pang clans secretly communicated with their divine senses. It's not that easy to comprehend such a supreme superpower. As far as I know, Pang Yu's death that day was caused by another outer sect disciple of the Qianquan Academy. Go back and find out who this outer sect disciple is. Before this, although the members of the Pang clan knew the cause, no one took this outer sect disciple seriously. No one would connect the death of a level 9 heaven immortal with an outer sect disciple of the Academy and an earth immortal. Now, Immortal Tai Hua's death had aroused the suspicion of the Pang clan. In the 9th heaven. Of course, Su Zimo knew that releasing fleeting youth would definitely attract the attention of the Pang clan. However, he had no other choice if he wanted to kill Immortal Tai Hua as soon as possible. Moreover, he was the one who caused Pang Yu's death. It was senior brother Yang Ruoxu who took all the pressure and hostility for him. Yang Ruoxu should not be the one to bear the responsibility. This time in the 9th heaven, he had obtained many treasures and the prison-suppressing cauldron was about to be completely repaired. When the time came, the 4 sacred souls would awaken and they would be comparable to at least 4 top-tier heaven immortals. It would not be that easy for the Pang clan to kill him. Moreover, when he returned this time, he would begin to cultivate in seclusion and break through to the heaven immortal realm. The Pang clan had no chance at all. No matter how bold they were, they would not dare to come to the academy to kill and take revenge. Su Zimo looked at immortal Tai Hua at his feet and took his storage bag first, keeping it in his bag. Then, Su Zimo straightened his palm and used it as a knife. He slashed down at immortal Tai Hua's throat and directly cut off his head. "You want to kill me, Su Zimo, and this is what you get." Su Zimo lifted immortal Tai Hua's head high up by his pale hair and looked into the sky. There was a hint of coldness in his eyes as he said loudly. This action caused an uproar outside the 9th heaven. He was provoking Commandery Prince Yuanzhua and Heaven Immortal Bai Hai. He was declaring war on the two of them. Bitch. Commandery Prince Yuanzhua was so angry that he gritted his teeth and his face darkened. The result of this battle was equivalent to giving the state of Jin and the Flying Immortal sect a hard slap in the face. Since the establishment of the state of Jin, apart from Feng Cantion who had caused a lot of trouble, they had never been humiliated like this. It was the same for the Flying Immortal sect. This time, not only did the Flying Immortal sect lose face, but even Zither Immortal Mingyao's reputation was damaged. What kind of person was the Zither Immortal? What kind of person was she? This time, in order to deal with a Stage 8 Earth Immortal, she did not hesitate to invite a reincarnated immortal to come out of seclusion. She had mobilized so many people, but they were all killed. They wondered how the Zither Immortal would react when she found out about this. Chapter 2236. The Fifth Heaven. Dozens of cultivators were still surrounding the Earth-ranking stone tablet, looking at the blood-stained battlefield not far away with a burning gaze. The corpses of the 16 Earth Immortals of the Dajin Immortal Kingdom and the Flying Immortal sect were scattered on the battlefield. The storage bags of the corpses were still tied to their waists. At that time, Su Zimo was chasing after immortal Tai Hua and was pressed for time. Naturally, he did not have the time to clean up the battlefield and collect the storage bags of the corpses. Who do you guys think will win the battle between Su Zimo and immortal Tai Hua? Don't worry, if immortal Tai Hua wants to escape and avoid the battle, Su Zimo won't be able to catch up. That's right. I reckon that if the two of them want to determine the winner, they will have to wait until the ranking battle. Everyone waited for a while and saw that Su Zimo still had not returned. Some of the cultivators could not help but have other thoughts. A cultivator from the Imperial Wind Temple ran towards the battlefield and waved his sleeves, collecting the storage bags of the corpses and putting them in his bag. "Mo Qian, what are you doing?" When Princess Qi Hong saw this scene, she glared and questioned loudly with a sullen expression. Her body was sealed by immortal Tai Hua's power and she could not move. She could only speak. "I'm just cleaning up the battlefield. What's wrong?" Mo Qian rolled his eyes and replied angrily, "These storage bags are ownerless." "What's wrong?" "Princess Qi Hong, you can't take them yourself but you can't let others take them?" "Ownerless items?" Princess Qi Hong glared at Mo Qian and gritted her teeth. She said slowly, "These Earth Immortals were all killed by junior brother Su of the Academy. Everyone saw it. These storage bags naturally belong to junior brother Su. How dare you say that they are ownerless items?" Mo Qian sneered. "He has already left and he didn't take these storage bags. Maybe he doesn't want them." "You!" Princess Qi Hong was furious. Xie Yun frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoist Mo Qian, have you ever thought about how Su Zimo would react if he saw that you took these storage bags away?" Mo Qian's eyes clearly flashed with a trace of fear and dread. However, he soon calmed down and pursed his lips. "Don't scare me. Su Zimo is chasing after immortal Tai Hua. I don't know how long he'll be chasing after him. He won't be able to come back at all. Besides, what can he do even if he comes back? Even if he doesn't pick up these storage pouches, he won't allow others to?" At this moment, Feng Yin's figure appeared not far away and was walking towards this place. When Emo Qian saw Feng Yin, he became even more confident. He snorted coldly and said, "My Imperial Wind Monastery also has reincarnated immortals. With senior brother Feng Yin here, he still dares to snatch the things of my Imperial Wind Monastery's disciples?" When Qi Hong Countess saw that this person was twisting words and forcing logic, she gritted her teeth in hatred. However, she was unable to break free from the seal and was unable to make a move. Suddenly, in the direction of the fourth heaven, a short figure was running towards this place. This person seemed to be carrying another person in his hand, dragging him on the ground. His running posture was a little strange. I wonder which fellow Taoist has arrived. When everyone saw the figure approaching rapidly, they were dumbfounded and had strange expressions. The person who arrived was a child of 8 or 9 years old. He had a tender face and wore a green shirt. There were a few braids on his head that fluttered slightly when he ran, making him look rather adorable. When did such a child appear in the elimination round of the 9th heaven? It's probably some unknown sect or faction. There's really no one else, and they allowed this child to participate in the Earth ranking competition. It's really tough on this child. A few cultivators shook their heads secretly. However, everyone soon recognized the person in the child's hand and their expressions changed gradually. It was the commander of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom's executioner Earth Guards, Han the Iron. Han the Iron was severely injured by Su Zimo. Didn't he escape from this place? How did he end up in the hands of this child? When Han the Iron left, he was in a sorry state, but at least he could still move. But now, Han the Iron's arms were crippled and there was a bloody hole the size of an arm in his chest. He was dragged all the way and his hair was covered in dust. He looked extremely miserable and dispirited and no one could recognize him at first glance. What happened to Han the Iron? What kind of strong enemy did he encounter again? And he was saved by this child. Everyone looked at the child, who ran closer with a puzzled expression. When the child arrived and saw more than 10 corpses and the battlefield that was covered in blood, he got a shock too. Pissed? They're all dead? The child recognized that the people who died were all from the Dajin Immortal Kingdom and Flying Immortal Sect. The child was shocked. Could it be Junior Brother Su's doing? Could it be that Han the Iron was severely injured by Junior Brother Su too? However, he soon remembered that he had more important things to do. He turned his gaze and looked at Princess Qi Hong, who was not far away. "Senior Sister Qi Hong, where's Junior Brother Su?" The child panted slightly with an anxious expression and asked worriedly, "Could it be that Junior Brother Su won? Where did he go? Where's Immortal Tai Hua?" "Child, which sect are you from?" Princess Qi Hong was confused by the child's words. She only felt that the child's facial features seemed a little familiar. However, even if he looked familiar, he couldn't be so friendly. What Senior Sister Qi Hong and Junior Brother Su? How old is this child? Is Junior Brother Su a baby? "Senior Sister Qi Hong, it's me." When the child saw the confusion in Princess Qi Hong's eyes, he hurriedly explained in a childish voice, "I'm Lu Ping." "Lu Ping?" Princess Qi Hong was astonished. The other disciples of Qianquan Academy were dumbfounded as well. "Now that you mention it, the more I look at him, the more similar he is," Princess Qi Hong murmured softly. "Aya." The child was anxious and waved his hands, gesturing. "In any case, something happened in between. Junior Brother Su helped me to possess a body for rebirth and changed my body. That's how I ended up like this." Although this explanation sounded a little far-fetched, the crowd gradually began to accept it as they looked at this familiar face. "Ah, right." Lu Ping slapped his head and suddenly recalled something. "Senior Sister Qi Hong, you guys have been sealed by someone. I'll break the seal in your bodies right now." Lu Ping released his grip and threw the half-dead Han the Iron on the ground before walking towards Princess Qi Hong. "There's no need to trouble yourself. You won't be able to break it." Princess Qi Hong sighed softly. "Let me give it a try." Lu Ping rubbed his chubby hands and was eager to try. Xie Yun shook his head gently and smiled. "You're an interesting child as well. This seal was left behind by a reincarnated immortal. Even with my strength, I can only break the seal on their tongues. Bang! 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 Before Xie Yun could finish his sentence, Lu Ping shook his head gently. The few braids on his head suddenly extended and transformed into a few soft and tender willow branches that poked Princess Chi Hong's body a few times. Princess Chi Hong shuddered and swayed slightly. She staggered and nearly fell. Xie Yun's expression froze as he opened his mouth slightly and could not continue. Princess Chi Hong's eyes were filled with disbelief as she tried to move her arms and circulate her blood qi. Everything was fine. The seal in her body had been broken. Chapter 2237. It's really unlocked. Princess Chi Hong was excited and energized. Hee. Lu Ping rubbed his chubby hands and grinned. He was happy to be able to help his senior brothers and sisters from the same sect. Lu Ping, you're amazing. Princess Chi Hong was a little impulsive to begin with. After being sealed by immortal Tai Hua for so long and unable to move, she was really bored. She suddenly stretched out her hands and placed them on Lu Ping's tender cheeks. She rubbed them and said with a smile, "Little Lu Ping, so you were so cute when you were young?" Lu Ping was dizzy from Princess Chi Hong's rubbing. However, he did not dare to attack as he was afraid that he would hurt Princess Chi Hong. "Junior sister Chi Hong, let him go. Let him unseal us. Junior brother Lu, come over and unseal us." The other senior brothers from Qinkuan Academy hurriedly shouted as well. Princess Chi Hong rubbed Lu Ping for a while before putting him down. It was as if Lu Ping had drunk strong wine. He walked unsteadily towards his fellow senior brothers and once again lifted the seals on the other disciples of the academy. He suddenly became so strong? Xie Yun frowned slightly. Lu Ping, who had turned into a child, seemed to have become his potential opponent. "How is junior brother Su? Where is he?" Lu Ping asked again. "Junior brother Su is fine. He went after immortal Tai Hua." Princess Chi Hong pointed at the corpses on the battlefield and said, "These earth immortals from Dajin Immortal Kingdom and Flying Immortal Sect were all killed by junior brother Su." "Lu Ping, you didn't see it. Junior brother Su's battle was really earth-shattering." "That's right. It's too scary." 18 peak Earth Immortals joined forces, but junior brother Su killed 16 of them and severely injured one. Even immortal Tai Hua was scared away. As he listened to the disciples of the Qinkuan Academy, Lu Ping could gradually imagine the grand occasion of this battle. "I'll go and help junior brother Su," Lu Ping said in a low voice. "I can't." A disciple shook his head and said, "Junior brother Su is chasing after immortal Tai Hua. Both of them have disappeared. How are you going to find them?" "That's true." Lu Ping lowered his head slightly. "All right, there's still one more thing that needs to be resolved." When Princess Chi Hong saw the corpses on the battlefield, she suddenly thought of something. She turned around and walked in front of Mo Qian. She stretched out her palm and shouted, "Hand over your storage bag." "What are you shouting for?" Mo Qian raised his eyebrows and said impatiently, "What storage bag? I don't know." Regardless of whether it was the prediction of the Earth Board or the Earth Board stone tablet, he was ranked in the top 20. In terms of combat strength, he wasn't inferior to Princess Chi Hong. Those earthly immortals from the Dajin Immortal Kingdom and the Flying Immortal Sect were killed by my junior brother Su. Those storage bags naturally belong to him. Don't even think about taking them for yourself. Princess Chi Hong argued for what was right and wasn't willing to show weakness. Mo Qian could not resist laughing and said, "Really interesting. Su Zimo has been gone for so long, but no one has touched those storage bags. They are clearly ownerless items and anyone can take them. Well, if Su Zimo doesn't come back in 10,000 years, others won't be allowed to take those storage bags?" "You!" Princess Chi Hong was enraged. Even though she knew that Mo Qian was being unreasonable, she had her reservations. Hence, she fought with the earthly immortals of Imperial Wind Monastery over a dozen storage bags. There were 11 earthly immortals of Imperial Wind Monastery here, and they were all looking over with hostility. If both parties were to fight, there was a high chance that it would turn into a chaotic war between the two factions. As for Imperial Wind Monastery, there was a reincarnated immortal, Feng Yin, holding down the fort. After today's battle, Heaven and Earth Academy had already fallen out with the Dajin Immortal Kingdom and Flying Immortal Sect. If they were to fight with the cultivators of Imperial Wind Monastery over a dozen storage bags, it would truly be irrational. Senior Sister Chi Hong, why don't we just let it go? Lu Ping tugged at Princess Chi Hong's sleeves gently and whispered, "It's just a few storage bags. There's most likely nothing good inside." "I know that too." Princess Chi Hong was indignant and frowned. "I just can't take this lying down. But enough people have died today. I don't want anything to happen to you guys." Lu Ping had a worried expression as he stammered. He had regained a new life and his combat strength had increased tremendously. However, that was his nature and he had many reservations. He was worried that a chaotic war would break out between the two factions and more disciples of the academy would die. Lu Ping witnessed the tragic death of senior brother Yi Fei personally, and that was a huge blow to him. He couldn't bear to see any more of his fellow disciples die in front of him. Although his combat strength was decent, he was not confident of defeating Feng Yin. If a chaotic war broke out, he was even less confident of protecting everyone from Heaven and Earth Academy. When she heard Lu Ping's words, Princess Chi Hong's expression darkened. She could not help but sigh deeply at the thought of Yi Fei who had died not long ago. "Forget it." Princess Chi Hong lowered her head slightly and muttered softly before turning to leave. "Fu!" Mo Qian scoffed and rolled his eyes, pursing his lips. "Ridiculous. Someone's here again. Why is he coming from that direction? This is..." Right then, a series of voices sounded from the side of the earth-ranking stone steel. "Su Zimo!" A cultivator recognized the figure and suddenly shrieked. Instantly, the surroundings of the earth-ranking stone steel fell silent. Those 3 words seemed to possess a magical power. Even the howling winds between heaven and earth seemed to have calmed down. Everyone shut their mouths at the same time and looked at the gradually approaching figure that was getting clearer. Instinctively, they held their breaths and focused with fearful expressions. The dozens of cultivators felt as though their throats were gripped tightly by a pair of invisible hands and they could not breathe at all. This was an invisible pressure that was indescribable but truly existed. Mo Qian's expression gradually turned incomparably pale. As for the cultivators of Heaven and Earth Academy, their eyes were widened in excitement as they looked at the figure that was approaching in disbelief. Finally, the figure passed through the sandstorm and appeared before everyone. The dozens of cultivators shifted their gazes slightly and their pupils constricted when they saw Su Zimo's hand. It was a bloody head that was just severed not long ago. Although the face was extremely old and filled with wrinkles, everyone could recognize that it was Immortal Tai Hua's face. Pissed, Immortal Tai Hua was dead. Immortal Tai Hua abandoned Han Tai and fled alone, but he did not manage to escape this calamity and was chased to death by Su Zimo. He even had his head chopped off. Looking at Su Zimo's handsome face, everyone could not help but feel a chill down their spines. Hee. At this moment, Han Tai, who was lying on the ground and almost unable to move, suddenly laughed when he saw this scene. There was a trace of mockery in his eyes. Immortal Tai Hua abandoned him and fled alone, but he did not expect that he would still be ahead of him. This was fate. Su Zimo carried Immortal Tai Hua's head and turned back to look at Han Tai, who was not far away. Chapter 2238. Junior Brother Su, I've caught Han Tai. Seeing that Su Zimo had noticed Han Tai, Lu Ping hurriedly turned around and carried Han Tai over. Fortunately, Junior Brother Su severely injured him. Otherwise, I could easily capture him alive. Su Zimo turned around and looked at the child in a green shirt in front of him. I'm Lu Ping. I don't know why, but after I transformed into a human, I became like this. Lu Ping spread out his little hands helplessly. Su Zimo nodded slightly with a calm expression. He was the one who helped Lu Ping take over the body and fuse with the primordial spirit of the gigantic willow. He wasn't surprised by this outcome. Junior Brother Su, Han Tai is basically a cripple. How should we deal with him? Lu Ping asked again. Su Zimo didn't say anything. He just went forward and pulled Han Tai over from Lu Ping's hands. Without saying a word, he used his palm as a knife and chopped Han Tai's neck. Blood spurted out. Han the Iron's blood was not warm, but it emitted an icy aura. Su Zimo chopped off Han Tai's head with one palm. The hearts of the dozens of cultivators in the surroundings trembled. Mo Qian's eyelids twitched wildly and the muscles at the corner of his mouth twitched uncontrollably. His face turned ugly. The commander of the Executioner Earth Guards of the state of Jin and the reincarnated perfected immortal of the Flying Immortal sect seemed to be no different from ordinary livestock in the eyes of this person. He killed so decisively and casually. Even the people from Qiankuan Academy were secretly shocked, let alone the others. Immortal Taihua had killed senior brother Yi Fei. Everyone naturally wanted to settle the score with Immortal Taihua. However, if they were asked to kill others under the watchful eyes of the crowd, everyone would have some misgivings and some hesitation. Only this person in front of them was decisive and fearless. In the square. Good, good, good. Seeing this scene, Duke Yuan's eyes were gloomy. He couldn't wait to rush into the ninth heaven and kill Su Zimo personally. Heaven Immortal Bai Hai had already put away his folding fan and sat at the table expressionlessly. The Dajin Celestial Kingdom and the Flying Celestial Sect had mobilized a large force to surround and kill them, but they had completely failed. 18 Earth Immortals led by Immortal Taihua, Han the Iron, and Qingshan Zi were all killed by Su Zimo. None of them survived. Even though these two factions still had 4 Earth Immortals left, they would not be able to do much even if they joined forces. These Earth Immortals had yet to reach the stone tablet. It could be seen that their methods were far inferior to those who had fallen. Naturally, they were not a threat to Su Zimo. After cutting off Han the Iron's head, Su Zimo walked to the battlefield and cut off the heads of the Earth-level deities from the Dajin Deity Kingdom and the Flying Immortal Sect. 18 heads, dripping with scarlet blood. Some died miserably, some had terrified expressions, some had hideous facial features, and some were badly mutilated. A scholarly man with delicate features was holding the 18 bloody heads in his hands, creating a strong contrast that made people shudder with fear. I've said that these people will be buried with senior brother Yi. Su Zimo said, bring senior brother Ye's corpse back to the academy. The heads of these people will be placed in front of his grave as offerings. The eyes of everyone from Qiankuan Academy turned red. That was perhaps the greatest consolation for Yi Fei. Yi Fei did not die in vain. His death alone caused 18 peak Earth Immortals from the Dajin Celestial Kingdom and the Flying Immortal Sect to be buried with him. Among them, there was even a reincarnated perfected immortal. What are you guys arguing about just now? Su Zimo looked at the Scarlet Rainbow Princess and suddenly asked. Qi Hong looked at Mo Qian, who was not far away, and hesitated to speak. She had originally wanted to tell him everything that had happened. However, after seeing Su Zimo's current state, she was worried that Su Zimo would not be able to defeat Feng Yin if he really fought with the cultivators of the Imperial Wind Monastery over the storage bags. Nothing. Qi Hong lowered her head slightly and avoided his gaze as she replied. Naturally, Su Zimo could tell that the Red Rainbow Princess was hiding something. He surveyed his surroundings and swept his gaze across the corpses on the battlefield. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat as he asked, where are the storage bags on the corpses? Some of the cultivators of Qiankuan Academy turned around instinctively and looked in the direction of the Imperial Wind Monastery. Su Zimo's heart lit up as he carried the 18 bloodied heads and walked over slowly. In the blink of an eye, he arrived before the cultivators of the Imperial Wind Monastery. Mo Qian and the others felt their hairs stand on end when Su Zimo's gaze swept past them. Who took them? Su Zimo asked indifferently. Although his tone was calm and one could not tell if he was happy or angry, Mo Qian felt an unimaginable pressure that almost suffocated him. Mo Qian could not withstand it and chuckled dryly, stuttering as he explained, when I saw you leave, I didn't pick up those storage bags. I thought. Su Zimo did not say anything and merely looked at Mo Qian silently. Mo Qian's tone turned weaker and weaker until he could no longer continue. The only thing left in his ears were his heavy panting and the sound of fresh blood dripping from the 18 heads on the ground. Time after time, It sounded like the footsteps of the king of hell. Just now, he had quibbled confidently in front of Qi Hong and the other disciples of Qiankuan Academy. But now, Mo Qian could not bring himself to say the words ownerless items. It was as though a calamity would befall him the moment he said those words. A thin layer of sweat gradually appeared on Mo Qian's forehead and bean-sized beads of sweat rolled down his cheeks. It was a little itchy, but he did not dare to wipe it off. "Don't be afraid." Right then, a voice sounded in Mo Qian's mind. It was senior brother Feng Yin's voice transmission. Mo Qian was invigorated and the fear in his heart seemed to have faded significantly. He glanced sideways in Feng Yin's direction. At that moment, Feng Yin was standing not far away and looking over. His eyes shone with a divine light and his aura was condensed, ready to strike. Mo Qian calmed down and took a deep breath. Mustering his courage, he turned to look at Su Zimo. Just as he was about to quibble, Su Zimo spoke once more. "Hand it over." There were no superfluous words and only 2 words were spoken in a calm tone. However, the courage that Mo Qian had just mustered was crushed by those 2 words and he nearly broke down mentally. No one could understand the pressure that Mo Qian felt when facing Su Zimo. Su Zimo had just killed 18 peak Earth immortals and even a reincarnated perfected immortal had died in his hands. This was a supreme might that was built with blood, slaughter and corpses and possessed an irresistible deterrence. In front of Su Zimo, Mo Qian felt like a weak little white rabbit while Su Zimo was an ancient ferocious beast that had just torn apart countless living beings and was emitting a torrential malevolent aura. In front of such a ferocious beast, Mo Qian crawled on the ground and trembled. Mo Qian dared to guarantee that if Su Zimo were to strike, even Feng Yin would not be able to save him. "Here, they're all here." Mo Qian completely broke down. With a move of his divine sense, he took out the dozens of storage bags and handed them to Su Zimo with both hands. "Very good." Su Zimo nodded and his gaze seemed to be much gentler. He patted Mo Qian's shoulder and said softly, "I might not be interested in these storage bags. But you have to remember, these are my things. If I don't give them to you, you can't take them. Remember." Mo Qian's body trembled slightly and he nodded subconsciously. Chapter 2239. Trash. In the square, Heaven Immortal Green Peak frowned when he saw that and could not help but curse, "You're a disgrace to my Imperial Wind Monastery. It belongs to Su Zimo to begin with. It's fine to return it to him." Perfected Immortal Xieling smiled gently and consoled. Heaven Immortal Green Peak's expression relaxed. However, just now, Mo Qian's performance was way too poor in front of Su Zimo and he was as obedient as a little bunny. "After returning to the sect, I'll let Mo Qian stay in the servant yard." Heaven Immortal Green Peak thought to himself. He had already decided on Mo Qian's future. In the 5th heaven, Feng Yin retracted his gaze and sighed internally, lamenting that it was a pity. Naturally, it would be for the best if he could get rid of Su Zimo in advance. However, he did not have any reason to do so in the 5th heaven and he could not attack for no reason. If a conflict broke out between the 2 of them because of this matter, he could naturally make a move and suppress Su Zimo. That was the reason why he told Mo Qian not to be afraid and looked forward to the escalation of the conflict between the 2 of them. However, he did not expect that Su Zimo did not even move a single finger and merely whispered a few words to Mo Qian for him to return the storage bag obediently. Now that things had come to this, Feng Yin could not say anything and could only close his eyes to rest. Su Zimo glanced at Feng Yin who was not far away. Just now, he could sense an intense hostility from this reincarnated immortal. However, it was quickly retracted. Not far away, more cultivators from Heaven and Earth Academy arrived and were shocked when they caught sight of the bloody and tragic battlefield. Before long, a cultivator from the same sect came forth to explain and everyone headed to the earth-ranking stone stele to leave their names. "Junior brother Su, you haven't left your name on it yet." Princess Qi Hong pointed to the stone stele. "You'll only be qualified to enter the final ranking battle if you leave your name on it." Although Su Zimo killed 18 Earth Immortals and left 18 spots empty, heaven and earth immortals were still alive. However, the disciples of Heaven and Earth Academy came forth one after another to leave their names and more or less filled up the empty spots. Furthermore, in the process of this battle, more cultivators arrived and left their names on the Earth ranking stone stele. The rankings above had already reached the 60th place. Su Zimo stepped forward and wrote his name on the stone tablet. The moment he left his name, his final ranking in the elimination round was confirmed. 68th. Within his sea of consciousness, the prison's suppressing cauldron began to vibrate. The treasure of the fifth heaven should be nearby. Su Zimo circled around the earth ranking stone tablet and slowly retreated. He looked up and suddenly frowned. This huge stone tablet was 10 zhang tall, and at the 90 zhang position, there were two names side by side. It was extremely conspicuous, and they were above the others. One of the names was Taihua. What's going on? Su Zimo pointed at the two names and asked. They're all competitive and don't want their names to be inferior to others. Princess Chi Hong explained. Su Zimo snorted coldly and said, I don't care about others, but immortal Taihua is not worthy. Boom. Su Zimo arrived before the earth-ranking stone tablet and stomped his feet heavily on the ground, creating a deafening sound that caused the entire space to quake. A figure rose from the ground and charged towards the peak of the earth-ranking stone tablet. That deafening sound attracted countless gazes. Everyone was shocked as they looked at the figure that was ascending continuously. What is he trying to do? Hasn't he already left his name on the earth ranking? Could it be that Su Zimo wants to surpass Feng Yin and Tai Hua's 90 zhang height? In the midst of the discussion, boom, there was another deafening sound. At the highest point of the earth-ranking stone tablet, a figure stood up slowly. His black hair danced as he looked down at all the cultivators in an arrogant manner. Not only did Su Zimo surpass Feng Yin and Tai Hua, he even reached the peak of the earth-ranking stone tablet and stepped on the entire earth-ranking stone tablet beneath his feet. How is that possible? What a powerful burst! Everyone exclaimed. Even Feng Yin narrowed his eyes as a trace of dread flashed across his eyes. Initially, he thought that Su Zimo was already exhausted. To think that he could still burst forth with such immense power. Although the 10th grade Qinglian's true body was severely injured, her injuries were much better by the time she returned and she still had extremely powerful burst power. More importantly, the power of this space was mainly earth. Qinglian's element of creation was wood. Wood countered earth. In this space, the influence of gravity on Qinglian's true body was much weaker than others. That was the reason why Su Zimo could reach the peak in a single leap. Su Zimo stood on the earth-ranking stone tablet and looked around. Not far away, he saw a fist-sized yellow soil that emitted a faint glow. In the square, perfected immortal Xieling explained, this yellow soil is called suppressing earth. It fell off from planet suppressing and the power of earth inside is extremely pure. It looks like yellow soil but it's incomparably tough. If you were refining an earth-type Dharma treasure, adding a small pinch of suppressing earth would greatly increase its power and effect. After pausing for a moment, Xieling smiled helplessly and said, this Su Zimo's nose is too sharp. He took all the treasures in the previous 4 spaces. Naturally, this suppressing earth can't hide from him. There won't be any danger, right? Elder Zhong was a little worried. After all, it took a lot of effort to subdue these treasures in the previous 4 heavens. Su Zimo had used many powerful trump cards and went through a lot of trouble. Now, Su Zimo had used up all his trump cards and was injured. If any other living beings appeared, it would be difficult to deal with them. There's no danger. Xieling shook his head and said, since ancient times, no one has been able to jump up there. The suppressing earth also did not give birth to any living beings. In other words, whoever could reach the top in one leap would naturally be able to keep the suppressing earth in their pocket. Yun Ting smiled slightly and suddenly asked, Your Highness Xieling, this is only the 5th heavens. Will there be treasures in the next 4 heavens as well? You mean? Xieling's heart skipped a beat and his expression changed starkly. There were similar treasures in every single heavens of the 9 heavens. Normally speaking, cultivators would have expended a lot of energy to reach the fifth heavens. Since there were still ranking battles to be fought later on, there was naturally no one who would continue ascending to the sixth heavens. That would be looking for trouble for themselves. However, the person inside was no ordinary person. Right then, in the 9 heavens, Su Zimo picked up the suppressing earth and squatted down. After a long silence, he used the suppressing earth to carve 2 words at the highest point of the earth-ranking stone stele. It was a person's name. When they saw that, the eyes of the elders of Heaven and Earth Academy turned red and they remained silent. The discussions in the square gradually calmed down as well. Many cultivators had conflicted expressions. In front of the earth-ranking stone stele, dozens of cultivators raised their heads. At the highest point of the stone stele, there was another name above the names of Feng Yin and Tai Hua. It was the name of a dead cultivator, Yifei. In Heaven and Earth Academy, Princess Chi Hong pouted her lips slightly and felt a lump in her throat. She turned her head away and cried silently. Lu Ping also recalled the scene of Yifei releasing the life-snapping sacrifice art and breaking free from his seal. He was touched and sighed gently. Yifei was dead. However, his name was left at the highest point of the earth-ranking stone stele, looking down at everyone. It was like a shooting star that streaked across the night sky, disappearing in the blink of an eye but releasing an incomparably resplendent glow. Chapter 2240. In the fifth heaven. Su Zimo got up slowly and stood at the highest point of the earth roll stone tablet. He kept the suppressing earth in his mind and it was quickly devoured by the hell-suppressing cauldron. After devouring and refining the suppressing earth, Su Zimo could use the sway wood from the fourth heaven to cultivate. The hell-suppressing cauldron could also be completely repaired and all 4 sacred souls would be awakened. Su Zimo looked in the direction of the sixth heaven and remained silent. He could vaguely guess that if he continued to ascend, there might be similar treasures hidden in the sixth heaven. However, in his current state, it was really not suitable for him to continue. Unless he completely gave up on the earth roll ranking battle and the fight for the first place. Killing immortal Tai Hua at the end had consumed a lot of his energy. Qinglian's real body had also taken a hit from immortal Tai Hua's supreme superpower. If he continued to ascend to the sixth heaven, it would be too risky. Moreover, to him, today's matter was not over yet. There were still 4 earth immortals from the Dajin celestial nation and the flying immortal sect in the 9th heaven. These people had entered the 9th heaven to join forces to kill him. However, they could not all gather together. Since they had already attacked, Su Zimo would not show mercy. Yifei's death had completely ignited Su Zimo's murderous intent. He wanted to annihilate the Dajin celestial nation and the flying immortal sect. He wanted to remove these 2 forces from the earth roll this time. He wanted to humiliate these 2 forces. All of a sudden, Su Zimo sensed something and his gaze shifted. He saw a figure rushing over from the distant sky. Judging by his attire, it was the executioner of the Dajin celestial nation. Boom! Su Zimo jumped down from the highest point of the earth roll stone tablet and landed heavily on the ground with a loud bang. Lu Yu was an expert among the executioner of the Dajin celestial nation. However, in this team, his combat strength was ranked at the bottom. Of course, even if he was ranked last, he had already reached the 5th heaven and the earth roll stone tablet was right in front of him. As long as he could leave his name on the earth roll tablet, he could join forces with Han the Iron and the earth-level deities of the flying celestial sect to kill Su Zimo. I'm a bit slow. Maybe Commander Tai Han and the others have already killed Su Zimo. Lu Yu thought to himself as he ran. At this moment, he suddenly smelled a faint scent of blood. He furrowed his brows and looked over, only to see more than a dozen headless corpses lying haphazardly in front of the earth-ranking stone tablet. They were all from the Dajin celestial nation and the flying celestial sect. How could this be? What happened? Lu Yu was shocked. At this moment, the ground beneath his feet trembled as if the earth was shaking. Then, a loud sound came from the direction of the earth-ranking stone tablet. Lu Yu's heart skipped a beat as he looked in the direction of the voice. he saw a green-robed cultivator striding over with 18 bloody heads in one hand with a torrential murderous aura. Su Zimo. Suddenly, Lu Yu's expression changed drastically. He saw clearly that those heads belonged to the Earth-level deities of the Dajin Celestial Nation and the Flying Celestial Sect. Even Han the Iron and Immortal Tai Hua were among them. Commander Han the Iron was dead. Even Immortal Tai Hua was dead. To Lu Yu, this news was simply too shocking. The impact was too great. For a moment, he couldn't accept it and didn't react. In just a few breaths, Su Zimo had already rushed to him. He didn't throw away the 18 heads in his left hand. Instead, he just stretched out his other hand and slammed it down on Lu Yu. This palm covered the sky and emitted an extremely fierce and ferocious aura. Under this palm, Lu Yu lost all his momentum and was scared out of his wits. If it was a normal fight, Lu Yu wouldn't have ended up like this. But now, seeing the heads of Han the Iron and Immortal Tai Hua being held in Su Zimo's hand, he was already scared out of his wits. Even if he had 10% of his combat power, he couldn't unleash 50% of it. Before he could activate his divine senses and release his mystical abilities and immortal arts, Lu Yu could only raise his arms and try to block Su Zimo's palm and turn around to escape. Bang! Su Zimo's palm landed on Lu Yu's arms and there was a muffled sound as if he was defeated. Crack! Immediately after, Su Zimo's eyes lit up and he suddenly exerted force and pressed down with one hand. Die! Su Zimo shouted like a god descending to the mortal world, majestic. Lu Yu's arms were directly broken by Su Zimo's palm. Lu Yu didn't have Han the Iron's reaction and methods and could still raise his head to dodge. Under the suppression of this huge force, Su Zimo's palm landed on the top of Lu Yu's head. With a bang, his brain burst and blood splattered everywhere. Through his skull, Lu Yu's essence spirit was shattered by Su Zimo's palm. With just a single palm strike, he had killed an executioner Earthguard. Su Zimo straightened his palm like a knife and slit Lu Yu's throat. Then, he cut off the huge head and held it in his hand. When the cultivators beside the Earth-ranking stone tablets saw this scene, they were still calm and their expressions didn't change much. After all, compared to the scene where Su Zimo was surrounded by Immortal Tai Hua, Han the Iron, and the other 18 Earth Immortals just now, this scene was nothing. However, in the square, Duke Yuanzhua and Heaven Immortal by Hai finally couldn't take it anymore and stood up with a furious expression. You guys from Qiankuan Academy are too ruthless. Heaven Immortal by Hai raised his arm and pointed his folding fan at the elders of Qiankuan Academy. He said hatefully, "We have already lost this battle and this kid still wants to kill us all? Are you trying to kill us all?" Elder Zhong sneered. "I'd like to ask if Su Zimo would still be alive if he fell into your hands." Elder He's expression was also unfriendly. He said coldly, "Bai Hai, don't forget that it was the Flying Celestial Sect and the Dajin Celestial Kingdom who attacked first and killed first. No matter how the disciples of our academy fight back, both of you will have to bear with it." Duke Yuanzhua turned to look at the perfected immortal Xie Ling and cupped his fists. "Your Highness, Su Zimo is so cruel and murderous. How is he different from a demon cultivator? In my opinion, this kid is most likely from the demon realm and a spy who sneaked into our divine firmament's celestial realm." Tui. Yun Ting spat out the mouthful of liquor he had just drunk and scolded, "Yuanzhua, you're really shameless. You can't beat him, so you're trying to slander him." Chapter 2241. As time passed, more and more names appeared on the Earth Roll stone tablet. With Su Zimo guarding this place, the remaining 3 Earth Immortals from the Dajin Celestial Kingdom and the Flying Celestial Sect did not manage to escape. They were all killed in the 9th heaven. Duke Yuanzhua and Heaven Immortal by Hai could only watch helplessly as this scene unfolded before them. At this point, the 22 peak Earth Immortals from the Dajin Celestial Kingdom and the Flying Celestial Sect were all killed. Earthly Immortals, even the most powerful Earthly Immortals, were nothing to these two forces. In the Flying Celestial Sect, Earth Immortals were only outer sect disciples. In the Dajin Celestial Kingdom, they were only executioners. The death of more than 20 people was not a big loss to the two major forces. It was not even a hair on their heads. However, the blow to the reputation of the two forces was immeasurable. Being removed from the Earth roll, the two forces were killed by one person, and even a reincarnated immortal was killed. This news would soon spread throughout the entire Divine Cloud continent and cause a huge uproar. It would even become a hot topic for many cultivators in the Divine Cloud continent for a long time to come. Duke Yuanzhua and Bai Hai would be seen as losers. The Dajin Celestial Kingdom and the Flying Celestial Sect would also be implicated. The elimination round was still going on, but to the many cultivators in the square, it was no longer interesting. They only occasionally looked up at the Earth-scale stone tablet to see whose name had been added. Most of them were still extremely excited, and they were still immersed in the shocking battle that could be called an earthly immortal. This Su Zimo of the Academy has truly made a name for himself in a single battle. That's right. It doesn't matter if he doesn't participate in the Earth Roll ranking battle. Even the first place on the Earth Roll this year can't overshadow his glory. For many cultivators, competing for the Earth Roll was nothing more than fame and fortune. This time, Su Zimo had obtained enough treasures in the 9th heaven. Now, he had become famous in the Divine Cloud continent with another shocking battle. In the eyes of the crowd, it was no longer important whether Su Zimo continued to participate in the Earth Roll ranking battle. After another 2 hours, there were already 100 Earth Immortals on the Earth Roll's stone tablet, excluding Immortal Tai Hua and the others who had died. This also meant that the Earth ranking elimination competition had officially ended. True Immortal Xie Ling slowly got up. His glabella flickered and his hands kept moving in the air, shooting out beams of true essence divine light into the mirror in the sky. The scene reflected in the sky gradually disappeared. Then, a huge crack appeared in the void, and countless figures fell out of it like carps crossing the river. Many cultivators controlled their bodies and returned to the flaming Sun Palace. They all felt as if they had been separated from the world for a long time. Millions of Earth Immortals had participated in the elimination round, and more than 100,000 of them had perished. The rest of the cultivators landed one after another and returned to their respective sections. As for the 100 cultivators on the Earth ranking stone tablet, under the control of Xie Ling's spiritual sense, they were all suspended in midair in the square, attracting the attention of everyone. These 100 cultivators stood in a row according to their ranking in the elimination round. The person in the lead was the first place of the elimination round, Feng Yin. The first is Feng Yin, as expected. Strange. Second place is Yu Feng from the Mountain and Sea Immortal Sect. The third place is Princess Qi Hong. What about Immortal Tai Hua? Most of the Earth Immortals who had participated in the elimination round had just come out from the 9th heaven, so they did not know what had happened in the 5th heaven. Han the Iron and Qing Chunzi are not in the top 10? What's going on? Who is that person? Why is he carrying so many heads in his hand? Some Earth Immortals were shocked when they saw Su Zimo, who was in the 68th place, and exclaimed. The long hair of the 22 skulls that had yet to dry were twisted into a bundle. They were held in the hands of a green-robed cultivator with delicate features, looking extremely shocking. Some Earth Immortals took a closer look and found that the heads of Immortal Tai Hua, Han the Iron, and the others were among them. What on earth happened? These Earth Immortals were shocked. Their fellow cultivators had already told them about the battle in the 5th heaven. For a moment, the square was in an uproar. Clap, clap, clap. There was a round of applause. Yun Ting stood up slowly and said, Su Zimo, you did not disappoint me. I did not come here in vain. Good job. Good fight. Remember the battle between us. I will wait for you on the heaven roll. Yun Ting laughed and was about to leave. He had achieved his goal and did not want to stay here any longer. The ranking battle is about to start. Are you not going to continue watching, Duke Yun Ting? Xie Ling asked with a smile. There is nothing to watch. Yun Ting waved his hand and said, even if there is no ranking battle, there is only one person who deserves to be the first on the Earth roll. Yun Ting didn't say it out loud, but everyone could tell who it was. Everyone had their own guesses in their hearts. In that battle, Su Zimo had killed 18 Earth Immortals by himself, including the famous immortal Tai Hua, Han the Iron, and other Earth Immortals. He was indeed worthy of the title of the top of the Earth roll. Xie Ling smiled and said, "No matter what, according to the rules, the ranking battle has to go on. Only the first on the Earth roll can be the first on the Earth roll." Heaven Immortal Qing Feng said, "There are many ways to fight between Earth Immortals. In the 9 heavens, the combat power of an Earth Immortal is limited and they can't use all their strength. That battle didn't prove anything." Feng Yin was from the Imperial Wind Temple. Seeing that Su Zimo was about to take away half of the fame and glory of being the first on the Earth roll, he would not give in. Furthermore, the scene of Su Zimo patting Mo Qian's shoulder as though he was teaching a child a lesson beside the Earth-ranking stone steel made Heaven Immortal Green Peak extremely uncomfortable. Hence, he would not let Su Zimo be too smug. Yun Ting pursed his lips and ignored Heaven Immortal Qing Feng. Everyone had their own standards and he could not be bothered to argue with him. Yun Ting got up and was about to leave when he looked at the seats of the Dajin Immortal Nation and the Flying Immortal Sect. He said sarcastically, "Yunzhua, Bai Hai, what are you two doing here?" "It's none of your business." Commandery Prince Yuanzhua replied coldly. Both of them looked terrible. If they could attack Yun Ting, they would have torn him to pieces. Yun Ting pursed his lips and shook his head. "The Earth Immortals of the Dajin Immortal Nation and the Flying Immortal Sect have been removed from the Earth roll. Why aren't you leaving with your men? Don't you think it's embarrassing enough? Our men are indeed dead, but the cultivators of their sects are still on the Earth roll." Heaven Immortal Bai Hai snorted. "Since you said that Su Zimo is the first on the Earth roll, I'd like to see what he has to fight for it." Everyone knew that Su Zimo had used all his trump cards in the battle in the 9 heavens. He had used up a lot of his energy and was injured. He would not be able to fight for the Earth roll. At the very least, Su Zimo would not be able to pass Feng Yin's test. Feng Yin had arrived at the Earth roll's stone roll early and had been recuperating. He had already recovered to his peak condition. Su Zimo, on the other hand, was exhausted from the continuous battles. In this aspect, the difference between the two sides was too great. How did Zimo carry 20 heads? It was not written in detail in the book and was scolded by a reader. How big is your protagonist to be able to carry so many heads? Alright, I'll describe it this time because those heads were not bald. They all had long hair. End of chapter. Chapter 2242. Elder Zhong pondered for a moment and stood out. He cupped his fists at Xie Ling and said, "Your Highness, there were too many changes in this Earth roll elimination round. 18 peak Earth Immortals joined forces to attack a disciple of our academy, causing him to expend too much of his energy and severely affecting his combat strength. I suggest that the ranking battle be postponed for a day. That way it will be fair." Elder He also hurriedly said, "That's the way it should be." Duke Yuanzhua was the first to stand out and sneered. "What a joke. Who didn't expend any energy in the elimination round? You want to change the rules for a disciple of Qiankuan Academy? That's right." Heaven Immortal Qing Feng also said in a deep voice, "After the elimination round, the ranking battle will begin immediately. The purpose is to not give these Earth Immortals any time to rest. Otherwise, the ranking of the elimination round would have no meaning. The changes in the elimination round are also part of the Earth roll competition. We can't change the rules just because of a small change." The cultivators of the Great Jin Celestial Kingdom and Flying Immortal Sect were all dead. Duke Yuanzhua and Heaven Immortal Bai Hai were naturally unwilling to see Su Zimo take first place on the Earth roll. Heaven Immortal Qing Feng represented the Imperial Wind Monastery and was unwilling to give in. He could also tell that if Su Zimo rested for a day and recovered to his peak state, Feng Yin might not be his match. The elders of Qiankuan Academy looked at perfected immortal Xie Ling. After all, Xie Ling was the person in charge of this 10,000-year meet and had the right to make the decision. Xie Ling was silent for a while and looked at the elders of Qiankuan Academy with an apologetic expression. She shook her head and said, "Just as fellow Taoist Yuanzhua and Qing Feng said, since the rules have been set, they can't be changed easily. Otherwise, the rules would be meaningless. The elders of Qiankuan Academy were not surprised by this outcome. After all, logically speaking, the 10,000-year meet could not change the rules just because of a disciple of Qiankuan Academy. Just now, they stood out and fought for it, holding on to a glimmer of hope and giving it a try. In that case, Elder Zhong looked at Su Zimo and said in a deep voice, "Zimo, withdraw from this Earth Roll ranking battle. There's no need to continue fighting." "Elder Zhong, don't worry." Su Zimo replied with an indifferent expression, "Since I'm participating in the Earth ranking competition, I won't withdraw at the last moment." He didn't want to take first place on the Earth board for fame. Instead, it was because the fiery Sun Celestial Kingdom had given him the most generous reward for being the first on the Earth board. Among them, there were many precious cultivation resources like the elemental holy liquid and rare elixirs like the Wutong pill. He could also enter the Imperial Palace of the Flaming Sun Immortal Kingdom and choose a secret technique to cultivate. He could also choose a magical treasure from the Imperial Palace's armory. These rewards greatly improved Su Zimo. Currently, he was at the peak of level 8 Earth Immortal, and if nothing unexpected happened, he would soon break through to level 9 Earth Immortal. If he digested all these rewards, he might be able to advance from level 9 Earthly Deity to Heavenly Origin stage and become a Celestial Immortal in a short period of time. If he wanted to compete with Yun Ting on the Heaven Leaderboard, he had to raise his cultivation as soon as possible. He would never give up on any opportunity that he could come into contact with. Duke Yuanzhua heaved a sigh of relief. Just now, he was still worried that Su Zimo would withdraw from the Earth board because of the persuasion of the elders of the Qiankuan Academy. Now, he was finally relieved. "Su Zimo, I'll wait here and see how you're going to lose this time." Duke Yuanzhua sneered. "Is that so?" Su Zimo glanced at Duke Yuanzhua and said, "I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed. I'm going to take first place on the Earth board." Hearing this, Feng Yin couldn't help but laugh and shake his head. If Su Zimo was at his peak, he wouldn't dare to say that he would win. But now, the gap between them was so huge. How could he lose to a level 8 Earth Immortal whose primordial spirit was weak and whose primordial qi was depleted? "Great." Xie Ling nodded with a look of approval and said, "Since no one has any questions, the ranking competition will begin now. Duke Yunting, Su Zimo is preparing to compete for first place on the Earth board. Are you going to leave early?" Xie Ling asked with a smile. "As I said, there's nothing to see." Yun Ting shrugged and said, "Even if Feng Yin wins, the first place on the Earth board will still be Su Zimo in my heart." "Su Zimo, it's okay to lose, but you have to stay alive. Don't forget the battle between us," Yun Ting said and turned into a ray of sword radiance. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the horizon. In fact, Yun Ting also thought that Su Zimo had no chance of winning this battle. That was why he had said those words just now. Su Zimo's problem was not only his condition, but also his trump cards. He had used up all of them and had not recovered yet. This battle was not fair to begin with. "Your Highness, does Mr. Su have a chance of winning?" Su Shaotian asked in a low voice, looking worried. Xie Qingsheng pondered for a long time and shook her head. If he meets an ordinary opponent, Mr. Su should be able to win with his close combat skills. But if he wants to compete for first place on the Earth board, he will have to face Feng Yin. He probably won't have a chance. After a short pause, Xie Qingsheng continued, "Furthermore, the ranking battles rules are extremely beneficial to the first place in the knockout round." "What do you mean?" Su Shaotian asked. Xie Qingsheng said, "The ranking battles rules are extremely simple. It's a 2-on-1 battle. There are a total of 7 rounds to determine the first place on the Earth board. In the first round, the first place will fight the last person. The second place will fight the 99th place. Since Mr. Su is ranked 68th, he should be fighting the 33rd place in the knockout round. In the second round, there will be 50 people left. They will continue to fight one-on-one. The first place will fight the 50th place, the second place will fight the 49th place, and so on. In the third round, there will be 25 people left. 24 of them will fight one-on-one, and one will have a bye. This bye will be reserved for the first place in the knockout round, which is Feng Yin. Su Xiaotian understood and said, in other words, Feng Yin will get more time to rest and fight less. That's right. Xie Qingqing nodded and continued, in the fourth round, there will be 13 people left. One of them will have a bye. This time, the bye will be reserved for the first place in the knockout round. In the fifth round, there will be 7 people left. One of them will have a bye again, and it will fall on Feng Yin. In other words, there will be 3 byes in the 7 rounds, and Feng Yin can use them to rest. Su Xiaotian looked worried. In this way, one side would be fighting with others, while the other side would have a bye. The gap between the two sides would only get bigger and bigger. But the 2-on-1 battle will only determine the winner. How will the ranking be determined? Su Xiaotian asked again. Xie Qingqing said, the 3 great immortal kingdoms and the 4 great immortal sects will each send a heaven immortal expert to judge the ranking of the losers. Chapter 2243. 100 Earth Immortal Realm experts would fight at the same time, and there would be 7 rounds to determine the final ranking. This was the most efficient and reasonable rule. It could prevent the top geniuses from encountering each other in advance and causing one of them to be eliminated, resulting in an inaccurate ranking. For example, it was difficult for the first and second place of the elimination round to meet each other in the first few rounds. Xie Ling tapped lightly with his fingertips, and a surge of true yuan surged into the ground in the middle of the square. Rumble! Under everyone's gaze, 50 square blue stones slowly rose from the center of the square and floated in midair. The blue stones were flat and huge, more than enough to be the battlefield for the Earth Immortal Realm experts. Everyone, get ready. According to the corresponding numbers on the blue stone battlefield, you can enter the battlefield. Xie Ling said loudly. In the middle of each blue stone, there was a number. The one with the number 1 was the first battlefield. The first place of the elimination round and the 100th Earth Immortal Realm expert would fight on this blue stone battlefield. Su Zimo was ranked 68th and would fight the 33rd Earth Immortal Realm expert on the 33rd blue stone battlefield. Coincidentally, his opponent was Dou Yuan from the Shui family, whom he had fought once on the long street of Monarch City. Figures leaped up and stood on the blue stone battlefield. The battle was about to begin. There are not many rules and restrictions on the cultivators in the ranking battle. They can use Dharma treasures, talismans, pills, and they can also fight to the death. Xie Ling said in a deep voice, however, if the opponent leaves the blue stone battlefield, they can no longer attack. Many cultivators had already known about this in advance. If someone left the Bluestone battlefield, many of the Heaven Immortals present, including Xie Ling, could stop them at any time. The Earth ranking battle has officially begun. Xie Ling saw that the 100 Earth Immortals had all arrived on the Bluestone battlefield and shouted softly. Boom, 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 clang, clang, clang. As soon as Xie Ling finished speaking, more than 30 Bluestone battlefields instantly broke out into a great battle. The sound of Dharma treasures colliding was deafening. Although it was a ranking battle, it was also an elimination round. As long as they lost a round, they would not have the chance to enter the second round. Therefore, no cultivator dared to hold back. As soon as the battle broke out, there was a battle that had already been decided. The first battlefield. With just one move, Feng Yin knocked the 100th Earth Immortal down from the Bluestone battlefield. The opponent didn't even have time to react. Feng Yin's movement technique speed was astonishingly fast. The spectators were not surprised by this scene, and they all nodded inwardly. Many cultivators shifted their gazes. They didn't look at the second or third battlefield, but at the 33rd battlefield. The 2 people on the battlefield didn't fight directly. Dou Yuan cupped his fists and said, "Fellow cultivator Su, my combat strength is definitely no match for yours. However, no matter who wins or loses, the ranking must be calculated. I can only fight with all my strength. Please forgive me." Dou Yuan had also witnessed the shocking battle in the 9 heavens with his own eyes. He knew very well that if Su Zimo was in his peak state, he would not be his opponent at all. But now, he had a slight chance of winning. Come. Su Zimo looked indifferent. Even though he knew that Su Zimo was in a weak state, he did not dare to be careless. He swiped his storage bag and pulled out his Destiny Dharma treasure immediately. A long saber with a cold glint appeared in his hands. Mysterious patterns were carved on the saber, and its aura was sharp and powerful. A Khanate Earth-grade Dharma treasure. Almost all the Earth Immortals who were qualified to participate in the ranking battle had a Khanate Earth-grade Dharma treasure. Some Earth Immortals who came from Sky-class sects with extraordinary backgrounds might have more than one. For example, the Scarlet Princess had as many as 3 Khanate Earth-grade Dharma treasures. 2 of them came from the Flaming Sun Immortal Kingdom and 1 from Heaven and Earth Academy. At the same time that Do Yuan summoned his Destiny Dharma treasure, he crushed a protection talisman. Instantly, a protective barrier filled with runes formed around him. Boom! The moment he did those 2 actions, Su Zimo stomped his feet on the ground, causing the bluestone battlefield to shake, and Do Yuan heard a deafening sound. The next moment, Su Zimo had already arrived before him. Even without using any movement techniques or secret skills, his speed was extremely terrifying just by relying on his physical strength. Sush! Do Yuan's expression was calm as he hollered. He raised the saber in his hands and slashed down at Su Zimo. That slash was extremely powerful, and it burst forth with an incomparably ferocious aura. At the same time, the patterns on the saber lit up and released an incomparably resplendent brilliance. It was like a scorching sun that shone into Su Zimo's eyes. The name of the saber was the Blind Saber. When the patterns on the saber were activated with Essence Chi, they would release a dazzling light the moment they exchanged blows. If the opponent was caught off guard, they would be temporarily blinded. However, Qinglian's 5 senses were too strong. Furthermore, Su Zimo's eyes were fused with 2 divine stones each. The light of the Blind Saber had no effect on him at all. Su Zimo did not even bat an eyelid. He merely raised his palm casually and curled, shook and tugged at the Blind Saber. Buzz! The Blind Saber vibrated continuously, as though it was wailing. Do Yuan was alarmed, and he felt a sharp pain in his palm. He lost his grip, and the Blind Saber was snatched away by Su Zimo bare-handed. After Su Zimo snatched the saber, he slashed in reverse. Swoosh! The flash of the saber beam resembled raging waves crashing against the shore and the rolling tides with a majestic aura. The light was resplendent. Do Yuan could no longer see the saber or Su Zimo in front of him. The only thing he could see was the tsunami that was 1,000 feet tall with a terrifying aura. It roared and surged over fiercely, crashing against his body. Bang! 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 Before the first wave subsided, another wave rose and the tides surged endlessly. Not only was Do Yuan blinded, even his 5 senses were reduced to their limits. It was as though he was in a torrential wave that stretched as far as the eye could see. Even if he had countless divine powers and secret skills, he could not control himself and could only float along with the waves. Such a saber technique is truly stunning. To think that this disciple of the academy would have such a move. I've never heard of any superior saber techniques in the academy before. That's a saber connecting to heaven. The meaning of a saber connecting to heaven was that the power of that saber could match divine powers. A series of exclamations sounded from both sides of the spectator area. However, Do Yuan could not hear those sounds at all. Suddenly, Do Yuan shuddered and jolted awake. The turbid waves before his eyes had all disappeared. It was as if everything was just an illusion. However, he had already fallen from the green stone battlefield onto the ground. Unknowingly, the protection talisman on him had shattered as well. He had lost. There was no doubt about it. Clang! Right then, a cold light flashed and entered the ground before him. Su Zimo had tossed the Blind Saber in front of him casually. With a conflicted expression, Do Yuan withdrew his Blind Saber and cupped his fists towards Su Zimo. Thank you for showing mercy, fellow Taoist. With that, Do Yuan retreated to his seat. Chapter 2244. Su Zimo also returned to his seat and rested. The 36 saber of time and fleeting youth had consumed too much of Su Zimo's essence spirit to kill immortal Tai Hua. The interval between the elimination round and the ranking battle was too short. Even though Qinglian's true body had an astonishing recovery speed, she could not recover much. He could only make use of all the opportunities and some trivial time to rest as much as possible and recover his essence qi. In the 50 battlefields, Feng Yin and Su Zimo were the first to end their battles. Most of the cultivators were still fighting fiercely on the battlefields. Su Zimo took a rough look. If nothing went wrong, at least 15 people from Qiankuan Academy would win in the first round. Among them were the Scarlet Princess and Lu Ping. Lu Ping's opponent was from Imperial Wind Temple and his movement technique was extremely fast. He circled around Lu Ping and wanted to use his movement technique to get rid of Lu Ping as soon as possible. However, Lu Ping had been reborn and was reborn. He could deal with his opponent just by standing on the spot and using the few willow branches on his head. Su Zimo could tell that Lu Ping was not familiar with controlling the power of this body. If he could fuse perfectly with this body, the Earth Immortal from Imperial Wind Temple would definitely not be his match. As time passed, the first round of the ranking battle ended and 50 people were eliminated. The Heaven Immortal experts of the 3 immortal kingdoms and 7 major immortal sects would decide the rankings of the 50 Earth Immortals. These 50 people could only be ranked in the bottom 50 of the Earth roll. However, the specific rankings would be judged by 7 people. The Earth Immortals who had advanced did not have any time to rest. The second round of the ranking battle began immediately. There were only 25 green stones left in midair. On the first battlefield, Feng Yin defeated his opponent at the fastest speed. Although he attacked 3 times, it was less than a breath's time. Su Zimo defeated Do Yuan and took his place at 33rd place. This time, his opponent was a cultivator from Qiankuan Academy who was ranked 18th. Junior brother Su, I admit defeat for this battle. The Earth Immortal from the Academy smiled and admitted defeat automatically, withdrawing from the battle. Thank you, senior brother Xiang. Su Zimo thanked him. Automatically admitting defeat was equivalent to being eliminated. It would negatively affect one's ranking on the Earth leaderboard. In the second round, 25 people would be eliminated, and the 7 heavenly immortal experts would tacitly agree to place him at the end of the list. The intention of this academy disciple was obvious. He wanted Su Zimo to have as much time to rest as possible. Junior brother Su, I should be the one thanking you. That person smiled and said, if it wasn't for junior brother Su's shocking battle, the disciples of the academy would have lost all face. Junior brother Su, we're all looking forward to your final battle. With that, the man jumped down from the blue stone. Su Zimo also retreated, continuing to regulate his breathing and conserve his energy. Not long after, the third round of the ranking battle began. In the third round of ranking battles, 25 people had advanced. Feng Yin had a bye, and the remaining 24 people would fight in pairs. In the first 2 rounds, Feng Yin ended the battle quickly, almost without any effort. At this moment, he was sitting calmly in his seat. His expression was relaxed as he watched the 9th battlefield. Su Zimo won the second round and was ranked 18th. His opponent in the third round was the 9th-ranked Earth Immortal. That Earth Immortal was an acquaintance as well. Imperial Wind Monastery, Mo Qian. When Mo Qian saw that his opponent was Su Zimo, he smiled bitterly with an awkward expression. Fellow Taoist Su, we meet again. Mo Qian cupped his fists and smiled embarrassedly. My combat strength is definitely not comparable to yours. I choose to retreat as well. Before Mo Qian could finish, his expression changed. Standing on the blue stone, his expression changed before he sighed helplessly. Fellow Taoist Su, this concerns the Earth ranking after all. I can only fight with all my might. Please show mercy, fellow Taoist Su. Su Zimo glanced sideways in the direction of Imperial Wind Monastery and understood what was going on. By the looks of it, it was clear that Mo Qian had suddenly received a voice transmission from a cultivator of Imperial Wind Monastery. It was most likely Heaven Immortal Green Peak who forbade him from withdrawing from the fight. That was easy to understand. Heaven Immortal Green Peak's goal was to make Su Zimo exhaust himself as much as possible without any time to rest so that Feng Yin had a greater chance of winning. Come on. Su Zimo's expression was calm. In a flash, Emo Qian touched his storage bag and pulled out a sword that was as thin as a cicada's wing, thrusting it toward Su Zimo. A cool breeze blew and the sword beam was retracted. The combination of the sword and sword technique complemented each other and almost fused into the wind. It was already difficult to detect with one's 5 senses. Su Zimo closed his eyes. All of a sudden, he took action like lightning, reaching out 2 fingers, sandwiching them in the void not too far away. A sword that was as thin as a cicada's wing was revealed from his 2 fingers. Suddenly, Su Zimo opened his eyes and his gaze intensified. Striding forward, he condensed his sword fingers and pierced towards Emo Qian's glabella with a sharp glint and shocking killing intent. That was the starting stance of the heaven-slaying sword art. He had released his heaven-slaying sword art early on, and although he had yet to recover fully, his sword fingers were sharp and unstoppable with killing intent. Shrouded by that terrifying killing intent, the scene of Su Zimo fighting 18 peak Earth Immortals in 9 heavens suddenly appeared in Emo Qian's mind. It was as though that bloody and tragic battlefield flashed before his eyes with headless corpses scattered all around. He seemed to be able to see a familiar face among the bloodied heads that Su Zimo was holding in his left hand. That was his face. Emo Qian was scared out of his wits. He didn't have time to think. He directly unleashed the secret technique of the Imperial Wind Temple and turned around to flee. Shoo! A stream of light flashed and Emo Qian had already leaped off the green stone. His speed was so fast that even Su Zimo was stunned for a moment. It had to be said that Imperial Wind Observatory was indeed superior in terms of movement techniques. Even though Emo Qian's combat strength was not at the top of Imperial Wind Observatory, Feng Yin was definitely stronger. Trash! When Heaven Immortal Green Peak saw that, he could not help but curse. There were chuckles from both sides of the spectator area as well. However, there was not much mockery in those chuckles. That was because everyone knew that any one of them might not be stronger than Emo Qian if they were in his position. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief. If Emo Qian made use of his movement technique and truly wanted to tangle with him, he would have to put in a lot of effort to win. However, Emo Qian was already scared out of his wits in 9 heavens. Right now, the heaven-slaying sword chi was not released and Su Zimo was able to scare Emo Qian away with a mere flash of sharpness, winning without a fight. The 3rd round of the ranking battle was over and Su Zimo's ranking was at 9th place. The following battles were going to be even more difficult. Su Zimo rested at the spectator area while paying attention to the battlefield. If nothing went wrong, his opponent would be either Yun Lei or another Earth Immortal. No matter who it was, a tough battle would be unavoidable. Chapter 2245. Yunlei Commandery Prince was originally ranked 9th on the Earth board. Since Su Zimo had killed Immortal Taihua Han the Iron and Qingqinzi, his ranking had risen to 6th. In the 3rd round, Yunlei Commandery Prince's opponent was an earth deity from the Fiery Sun Celestial Kingdom who was ranked 21st. Although this earth deity's combat strength was quite good, he was obviously weaker than Yunlei Commandery Prince. After observing for a while, Su Zimo had already deduced that his opponent in the 4th round would be the Yunlei Commandery Prince. At the beginning of the 4th round, there were only 12 people left, excluding Feng Yin. These 12 earth deities could be called the real demons among the earth deities. It was worth mentioning that apart from Su Zimo, Princess Qi Hong from Qingkuan Academy had also defeated her opponent and was still ranked 3rd. Lu Ping, who had reconstructed his physical body, had also advanced to the 4th round and was temporarily ranked 10th, becoming one of the top 12 earth deities. 3 earth deities from Qingkuan Academy had entered the top 12. This was also the best record in the history of Qingkuan Academy. If Su Zimo's appearance was the most shocking, then Lu Ping's rise was the most mysterious and enviable one. This was the effect of opportunity. With just one opportunity, Lu Ping had turned from an ordinary disciple of Qingkuan Academy who could not enter the Earth Board to a brilliant Earth deity. He had completely changed his destiny and his future was limitless. Not long after, the third round of the ranking battles ended and the fourth round began. Feng Yin was still the one who had not won. The sixth round, Yunlei Commandery Prince versus Su Zimo. Fellow Taoist Su, we did not have a chance to fight in the immortal sect selection 1,000 years ago. Today, I can let go of one of my worries. Yunlei Commandery Prince said with a complicated expression. 1,000 years ago, he had participated in the immortal sect selection together with Su Zimo. However, he was overshadowed by Su Zimo. It was also because of the great pressure from Su Zimo that he changed his mind and joined the Mountain and Sea Celestial Sect. The Yunlei Commandery Prince was still thinking about this matter. He made great progress in his cultivation and wanted to compete with Su Zimo on the Earth Roll. However, the battle in the Nine Heavens had given him too much of a shock. Yunlei Commandery Prince knew that this fight was unfair to Su Zimo. If it was a fair fight, even 20 of him would not be a match for Su Zimo. This is related to the Earth Roll ranking. I will do my best. I hope fellow Taoist Su can understand. The Yunlei Commandery Prince cupped his hands. Sure, just do it. Su Zimo's expression was still calm, and his eyes were calm. The Yunlei Commandery Prince activated his primordial spirit and the primordial qi in his body surged. Streaks of dazzling lightning appeared on his body and coiled around him. His aura continued to climb. Above the square, dark clouds covered the sky and rolled over, giving off a huge pressure that made people feel suffocated. In an instant, the sky darkened. I heard that when the Yunlei Commandery Prince was born, the sound of thunder resounded through heaven and earth. He was born to be close to the power of thunder and has cultivated many thunder secret skills. His killing power is terrifying. That's right. If it wasn't for the Yunting Commandery Prince, who was even more terrifying, the Yunlei Commandery Prince would be the #1 genius among the younger generation in the Zixien Immortal Kingdom. Rumble. The sound of thunder rumbled and the sky darkened. It was as if the end of the world had arrived and shrouded the flaming sun palace. This was the first time that an Earth Immortal had caused such a phenomenon in the ranking battle. Su Zimo raised his head slightly and looked at the thunder and lightning in the sky. A strange light flashed in his eyes as he murmured, "Thunder, boom." Yunlei suddenly opened his mouth and released a sound domain secret skill. This secret skill resonated with the sound of thunder in the sky and gave birth to a terrifying wave of energy that hit Su Zimo. At the same time, Yunlei released his eye technique. A streak of lightning flashed across the dark sky and landed in front of Su Zimo. The sound domain secret skill and eye technique arrived at almost the same time. Su Zimo shouted and released the secret skill, Thunderclap Kill, to counteract the power of Yunlei's sound domain secret skill. At the same time, he formed a seal with his hands and activated his primordial spirit. It was as if he was holding a huge spear in his hands and he stabbed it into the sky. Buzz. A blazing light exploded in the sky and lit up the sky as if it was daytime. Even the dark clouds in the sky were torn apart by the dazzling light. Cracks appeared in the clouds and light shone through. Thunder piercing the 9 heavens. Xie Ling exclaimed in the spectator stand. Commandery Prince Yunzhua seemed to have thought of something and his face darkened. This was Feng Centian's secret skill. He knew that Feng Cantian and Su Zimo had some kind of relationship. However, he didn't expect that Feng Cantian would pass on this terrifying secret skill to Su Zimo. When Feng Cantian was at the peak of his power, this secret skill had blinded the eyes of a genuine immortal during the 9 Heavens convention. It was precisely because of this that an immortal king released a sigh. Lightning illuminated the 9 heavens, bestowing this secret method a name. Although Commandery Prince Yunlei's eye technique was powerful, it was as if the sun had shone on ice and snow. It melted instantly and there was no way he could resist it. Commandery Prince Yunlei felt a stinging pain in his eyes. At that moment, he sensed a ferocious aura approaching him like an ancient ferocious beast. It was filled with the smell of blood and it felt like it was going to tear him in half. Oh no. Commandery Prince Yunlei was shocked when he realized that Su Zimo had arrived in front of him. He had seen how terrifying Su Zimo's close combat skills were, and he knew that he had no chance of winning against him. Commandery Prince Yunlei used the thunderclap escape technique, and his body turned into a ray of lightning and disappeared from his original spot. He retreated rapidly and put some distance between himself and Su Zimo. At the same time, Commandery Prince Yunlei circulated his primordial spirit to the maximum. His hands kept forming seals, and he opened his mouth to speak in a thunderous voice. Heavenly thunder of 5 directions. Wind and thunder, rain and thunder, traveling cloud sky thunder, Buse heavenly lightning, traveling ice heavenly thunder, traveling heavenly thunder, flying sand sky thunder, devouring heavenly lightning, demon subduing heavenly thunder, ghost devouring lightning. 12 heavenly lightning spells were released in the blink of an eye. In an instant, the sky changed color. Heavy rain poured down, hailstones blotted out the sky, torrents surged, strong winds blew sand and stones, evil spirits roared out of their cages, and fiend gods loomed. Countless rare phenomena filled the heavens and earth. Each of them contained an endless force of lightning, which covered the heavens and earth as they swept toward Qin from all directions. 12 heavenly thunders, Yunlei Commandery Prince. On both sides of the spectator stands, waves of exclamations sounded. The power of lightning was the most lethal. Every bolt of heavenly thunder was extremely powerful. Now, 12 bolts of heavenly lightning were released at the same time. It was simply devastating. Chapter 2246. If Su Zimo was in his peak condition, he would have been able to neutralize the 12 heavenly thunders without using his trump cards. But now, only a rare superpower could resist the 12 heavenly thunders at the same time. Why hasn't Su Zimo made his move? Is he going to give up and admit defeat? A commotion broke out among the crowd. The 12 heavenly thunders covered the sky and the sun. Su Zimo stood motionless on the blue stone. Under such a terrifying attack, he looked weak and would be swallowed up at any time. On the other side, the Yunlei Commandery Prince's face was pale and his eyes were dim. He heaved a sigh of relief when he noticed that Su Zimo seemed to have given up. The 12 heavenly thunders at the same time consumed too much of his primordial spirit. His primordial spirit was on the verge of collapse. However, when the Yunlei Commandery Prince looked at Su Zimo's face, he felt uneasy. His face was too calm. Under such an attack, there was no panic or fear. There was only calmness. Furthermore, Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly, as though he was looking forward to it and was eager to give it a try. Boom, boom, boom. The 12 heavenly thunders struck Su Zimo's body. Su Zimo did not dodge. His eyes shone brightly as he activated the bone-strengthening chapter of the Void Thunder skill. He guided the thunders into his body and used the 12 heavenly thunders to temper his bones. This move was too crazy. It was unimaginable for others. However, Su Zimo was confident. He had the real body of the 10th grade Qinglian. His physique was extremely strong and his vitality was vigorous. He believed that even the 12 heavenly thunders could not destroy his vitality. He was also confident in the Void Thunder skill. He believed that the skill created by the Thunder Emperor was enough to subdue the 12 heavenly thunders for his own use. No one could imagine that Su Zimo would use his opponent's heavenly thunders to temper his body and temper his bones in the Earth Roll ranking battle. Heavy rain, hailstones, fiend celestials, malevolent ghosts, flying sand, all sorts of different powers struck Qinglian's real body continuously. However, they were all subdued by the Void Thunder skill and turned into runes that stimulated and tempered his bones continuously. The power of thunder on the bones of Qinglian's real body burned brighter and dazzling electric arcs. His bones flowed and even rumbling thunder. Bones bone tempering by thunder. Not only did Su Zimo's life force not weaken under the bombardment of the 12 devastating heavenly thunders, it even intensified. Gasps of exclamations could be heard from the crowd. Many cultivators. Lightning represented slaughter and destruction, but it also gave birth to life. Spring thunder twos awakened. Qinglian zimos to be to su, s's, twos's qinglians? Su's twos? S twos's? This? S? To be? S? To. Although Qinglian's real body was constantly recovering, it had yet to fully recover. Now, with the help of the 12 heavenly thunders, Su Zimo was bathed in thunderbolts. His bones buzzed, his marrow flowed, and his qi and blood surged. His physical injuries were healed. Fellow Taoist, thank you. Su Zimo's voice could be heard through the rumbling thunder, and the Yunlei commandery prince could hear his voice. At the same time, on the greenstone battlefield, Su Zimo's hands moved and condensed a Dharma seal in the sea of thunder left behind by the 12 heavenly thunders. Boom! Su Zimo raised his hand and a huge palm slapped down towards Yunlei County. In the blink of an eye, the endless power of thunder in the world gathered on the huge palm. The aura of the palm became increasingly terrifying. Surrounded by endless thunderbolts, it was like a huge hand from the heavens that could suppress and destroy everything. Thunderbolt Palm. It was a powerful secret skill of the Void Thunder skill. Back in Thunder City, the Thunder Emperor, Feng Kentian, who was severely injured, had just escaped when he unleashed this secret skill and killed 2 perfected Immortal Realm experts on the spot. After releasing the 12 heavenly thunders, Yunlei County's primordial spirit was extremely weak. When he saw the Thunderbolt Palm coming towards him, he could not resist at all. Yunlei hurriedly took out a few Dharma treasures from his storage bag and tore up more than 10 protective talismans. As soon as he completed these actions, the Thunderbolt Palm arrived. An unimaginable force hit him. Yunlei commandery prince could hear cracking sounds in his ears. Under the impact of the Thunderbolt Palm, more than 10 protective talismans were like paper. Boom! With the Dharma treasures in front of him, Yunlei County's body shook violently and he could not control his body. He fell from the greenstone battlefield and landed heavily on the ground. His mind was in a mess and he fainted on the spot. The heaven immortals of the Zixien celestial kingdom hurriedly took action and brought Yunlei County back to the spectator area. They were relieved when they saw that Yunlei County's vitality was still there. These people looked at Su Zimo with a hint of fear in their eyes. No wonder Yunting County's primordial spirit was the one who had been taught the strategy by Yunting County. Among those of the same level, only Yunting County could fight with such a demonic talent. In the 4th round, Su Zimo won and he rose to the 6th place on the Earth board. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief. He jumped down from the greenstone battlefield and returned to the Qiankuan Academy to recover his primordial spirit. Although his physical body had recovered to its peak, the power of his primordial spirit had not recovered much. Under the nourishment of the lotus seat of good fortune, Qinglian's primordial spirit had only recovered about 30%. After watching the battle, Feng Yin felt a sense of relief in his heart. I didn't expect Su Zimo to have such a powerful trump card. Fortunately, Yunlei County's primordial spirit took action and forced him to use his trump card first. Otherwise, I would have to consume a lot of energy to deal with such a move. Feng Yin was calm and composed as he kept calculating in his mind. In this way, his chances of winning were much higher. Although Su Zimo's physical injuries had recovered, his primordial spirit had been greatly depleted. This was a huge weakness. In a battle of such a level, it could be said to be fatal. Feng Yin's expression was calm and he became more confident. In the other battlefields, Lu Ping defeated Yuntao County's primordial spirit and was temporarily ranked 5th on the Earth board. Not long after, Qi Hong Countess also defeated her opponent and was still ranked 3rd on the Earth board. At the end of the 4th round, 3 of the top 6 on the Earth board were from Qiankuan Academy. Seeing this result, many cultivators shook their heads slightly and sighed. In the 9 heavens, when they saw Immortal Tai Hua Han Tai and the rest seal Qi Hong Countess and the other disciples of Qiankuan Academy, everyone thought that Qiankuan Academy was finished this time. They did not expect that such a shocking battle would completely change the situation of the Earth board. Qianquan Academy was extremely dazzling while Dajin's Celestial Kingdom and Flying Immortal Sect were completely removed from the Earth board. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.